Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight we have Annwyn Avalon. She's the author of Water Witchcraft, Magic and Lore from the Celtic Tradition. I've been reading her book. I'm really interested in this, especially in Celtic lore. A lot of the Celtic Irish tradition, because I have a lot of Irish ancestry, and people have heard my, what I think is a banshee story. But we're going to talk a lot about tonight the power of water, lakes, oceans, the fountain of youth, all those things. There's a lot I want to get into with Annwyn, and of course we have the World Wide Web of Weird tonight at the beginning of the show. She'll be on after that. We got a lot of weird to get to, and the phone lines will be open later in the show, probably after the second commercial break. You can call in, tell us what do you know about water and its magic and its power. I have to say it's got a lot of power to shut this show down with the water flooding in my basement. That's the first time we tried to schedule Annwyn. We had to reschedule because of that, and then I fried my mixers, and now we had to reschedule her again. Here she is, and guess what? As I come down to my basement, there's water from an air conditioner. Yes, yeah. Me and water have not the greatest relationship. I've been afraid of it all my life, afraid of drowning, never a great swimmer, battling a flooded basement. So maybe Annwyn can help me with that tonight. But let's go ahead and get rolling into the show. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight's guest, Annwyn Avalon, will be on after our World Wide Web of Weird news segment. We got a lot of weird, but let me go ahead and bring up my co-host. Usually I bring Jamie D up, but I want to get to Rob really quick because we were having some technical issues, and hopefully he's good. Rob from St. Augustine, Florida, are you there?
Am I good?
You sound great. I
Cool.
see you.
You see
so
me?
We're working.
All right.
Do you think you got the World Wide Web of Weird ready for that?
Yeah, it's ready to go.
Okay. I was a little worried.
Yeah. You know me, last minute Larry.
It's all right. And then Jamie D is with us. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
Doing well, thank you. Looking forward to tonight's topic.
Yes. We got to talk to her pre-show on the sound check. Sounds like a lovely person and really interesting and ready to talk about her book, Water Witchcraft, Magic and Lore from the Celtic Tradition. So getting into that tonight, and the phone lines will be open later. But let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, I figured we might as well start off with this one since we've been covering it almost every other World Wide Web of Weird. It was first Storm Area 51. Now they've turned it into, what did I not call this? Alien stock. Yes, alien stock.
You did call that.
I did totally call it. But yeah, that's what it is. It's corporate America. The government doesn't need to do anything but just bring a bunch of booze and drugs and some vans, and nobody has to worry about the Storm Area 51 anymore. For those listening on our webcast, listening on our radio network, we are a webcast you can watch on Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup's Facebook page, or you can actually see it on YouTube as well. All right, so this first one, and I got the share screen up. Yes, okay. So Storm Area 51 is now called Alien Stock. It was first called Storm Area 51. They can't stop all of us. And it stated on Facebook, its purpose was to meet up at rural Nevada and coordinate our parties. If Narado run, we can move faster than their bullets. And I never knew what Narado run was until this. I have no idea. I guess I'm old. I don't know. Narado run. I didn't know it was a bunch, some video game where they run with their arms behind their back and look even more sissy. It reached up to 2 million people said they were going to go. And of course, like 50 people probably show up. I don't know. Now, though, a bunch of people show up. It might blow up in their faces. But while the military, local police, and Area 51 experts warned this was a bad idea that could end up pretty badly, it didn't better the moneymakers as corporate sponsors offered beer, fast food, and exotic dancers. Oh, wow. So the exotic dancers, too. Yeah. Lil Nas X, I don't know who that is. Let's see, I really feel old. Offered to play there while the organizers admitted it was a hoax. Now the money making potential has hit him, as well as he's turning the event into a musical festival. And I said that because he was in an interview, like a TV interview, and he said, well, we could just like meet up and get a bunch of bands. I'm like, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see where this is going, buddy. I see where this is going. We're aiming to establish something unique here, a meeting place for all believers. Come out to the desert to dive into a world full of live music, arts, and camping under the stars, dude. That's what I hear in my head. We encourage attendees to bring all of their essential needs. Yeah, what are those essential needs? And we ask that everyone remember to fill up those gas tanks. We have the critical infrastructure set in place. We can't wait to share this experience. But what about storming Area 51? No backpacks, no weapons, no animals, no drones, no water. Bring your no water. Bring your own, but not in a backpack. No fire pulley or fire staffs. There's like all this stuff. Don't bring this. Don't do this. Man, this is going to be a disaster.
Somebody's getting killed.
But I don't. It's basically like what I also said is that the government's had a plan in place the whole time. And what if the plan? Yeah. What if the plan the whole time is like, and somebody thought of it during Woodstock, like, look at all these people. If they want to storm Area 51, let's just distract them with a bunch of jam bands and a lot of drugs and alcohol. That'll get them. Yeah. Right down. It might blow up in their face, though. Get all these people really high, and then they're all like, let's storm Area 51. I don't know. It's
going to blow up, all right.
I don't
People's
know.
Heads. I have a bad outlook on this. It sounds fun, but it's a terrible idea.
Sounded like a good idea at the time, man.
Yeah.
It's just and these guys don't even sound like that anymore. I mean, they're like, I'm not even familiar with the culture of millennials or kids that want to do this stuff. I don't know, but like I said, this all started because they're like, Bob Lazar, oh my God, Joe Rogan. It's like,
bike.
It's like, welcome to the party, man. Yeah. All right, let's move on. Speaking of UFOs, we got a couple here. Let me bring that back up as soon as Drop gets it here. This Daily Star had it, and I got it here also from Coast to Coast AM. Multiple dark UFOs filmed in Texas. A driver in Texas was left scratching her head after spotting a strange cluster of dark objects hovering in the sky. The weird sighting reportedly took place in the city of Odessa this past Tuesday as an unnamed motorist was stopped at a red light. While waiting for the signal to change, she gazed up at the sky. Let me get the video pulled up here. It might be really hard to see for people. Sometimes it whites it out to share screen. The witness initially suspected that the oddities were simply balloons or birds, but she began to doubt that assessment when she noticed that one of the objects appeared to flash. Unfortunately, the light eventually turned green, and so the witness forced to leave the scene. To her credit, she did try to turn her car around to see if she could spot the UFOs again, but they were gone by the time she arrived. And this is during the day. Sometimes the day ones are hard to see with the share screen. Let me zoom in on it. Hold on. Go ahead. Play it. Yeah, it's like really white. You can barely see it. I can see it out there. Hidden underbelly. You can find this video. You might want to get rid of that. Can you get rid of that play thing? Oh, I see it now. I see it up there. But we've had a lot of these weird UFOs lately. There's something going on. And I'm going to play that again. See if we can get it. Next time I have to try to put a contrast on this, on the video, so you can see it better. You can see them. They're like these, they look, I mean, I don't think they look like balloons. They look way up there.
Yeah. The one that is right here almost looks like a parafoil or something. It's got that arc.
Yeah, kind of does. There's I didn't put it in the World Wide Web Weird. There was the flying Mothman spotted near Lollapalooza, and I didn't have that one in here, but my wife pointed that one out. Looked like one of those guys in those parachuters with the wings. What do you call them? Skydivers. That's what she said it looked like. I'm like, yeah, it kind of does. All right, next one. This is I don't know what it creeps me out about this. A snake-like, snake-like UFO seen in New York State. I hate snakes. I love UFOs, but I don't want them to look like a snake. Strange snake-like UFO, which has been spotted in the skies over numerous parts of the United States this summer, seemingly caught on film once again by a witness in New York. So this has been seen before. I think I might have had this on the World Wide Web before the other one. Let me go ahead and pull this up on the share screen. Unidentified witness reportedly reading in the village of Clayville, New York, noticed one of the dark tubular objects in the sky around a month ago and managed to capture it in an oddity on film. He subsequently shared the sighting with the British Earth and Aerial Mystery Society, who posted the footage to YouTube a few days ago. Unfortunately, the organization did not provide much in the way of details from the incident, aside from the statement from the witness declaring that they saw a gigantic snake UFO which moved like it was alive. I'm like, is it a kite? Is my theory. It could possibly be a kite. It's weird the way it moves, but I mean, like somebody has like a long kite up there. I don't know. Looks pretty high up, but it says, and considering the object was apparently seen around the same time as similar snake-like anomalies we were spotted in the Western United States, a number of UFO enthusiasts have suggested they are all connected and may be possibly part of some kind of clandestine government program. More skeptically minded individuals, however, say the mystery craft are merely balloons. What's your take? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I want to know about balloons. I don't know.
Garbage falling down or floating down?
It's long. It's big. I thought maybe a kite.
Like a big long garbage bag floating up there.
Yeah, I mean, I have some really, really big kites with like 100, 200 foot, like 10, 12 inch, tube tails. And they kind of look like that, but the way it turns and goes kind of up is pretty weird. Like that.
See, I wouldn't be familiar. I'm not a kite flyer. I'm not, never really got into kites. So you think it's unkite-like?
Yeah, I would say it's unkite-like. The way it turns and like, I don't know. It's kind of weird.
This looks like the air is just blowing it around, like something floating along with the current of the air.
Yeah, that's why I thought it might be a kite. It's weird. I mean, what kind of craft would you want that would be like turning? I mean, I don't know. It'd be a weird ship. But I mean, we got Lures of Dragons.
This space poopy. I don't know. It's pretty weird.
Like a fish poop.
A dragon. So all the Chinese dragons are all like snake like that. People saw something in the sky to inspire them. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's some kind of interdimensional creature we don't understand.
Yeah.
Popped on in.
Space worm.
I don't know. Let's move on before we run out of time. This one I should have had the video footage. I don't. I just have a picture of the guy doing it. But this has been super viral. I got it from Unexplained Mysteries. Man with TV on his head leaves TVs on lawns. What is going on? A man with a TV for a head has been caught on CCTV leaving old CRTVs outside people's homes in Virginia. Homeowners in Henrico, Hampshire neighborhood got a surprise on Sunday morning when they woke to find that someone had been leaving old school television sets on their front lawns. Doorbell surveillance cameras managed to capture footage of the culprit, and there's a few different pieces of footage out there, but they're like all on newscasts. I hate sharing newscasts. A man dressed in a blue boiler suit was also happened to be wearing a television set on his head as well. A total of around 50 homes in the area were visited by mysterious TV man. He's committed to his trade, said resident Jim Brooksbank. He wants to be known as the TV Santa Claus. I don't know why. Police officers since rounded up all the television sets. However, the identity of the man and his motivations are leaving the TVs around the neighborhood continue to remain a complete mystery. As scenes stand, the phenomenon is being treated as a harmless prank. It mostly seems to be more inconvenience to the community, the officers told the press. And some think it's like some kind of college prank or something like that. And I've seen two different footages. It looks like it could be a couple guys doing it. But I mean, one, he's walking around with, that's gonna be hard. I mean, I know they probably just emptied out the whole TV, but still walking around with a TV on your head in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
That's some dedication, man. But they're all crap TVs. He's not dropping off like, 50-inch flat screens. He's dropping off like tube old TVs, analog connections. No HDMI on these people. No HDMI.
We got the old TV shop, and they're like, "What the heck are we gonna do with all these TVs?" I know.
I got plenty of TVs for him, like old TVs. He can come if he wants to carry them out of my house and go dropping off on some other poor person's doorstep. Yeah. Please come, TV Santa. I got plenty for you to give away to the people who need crappy old TVs. I think I I don't know if anybody needs them. If they work with anything now. All right, let's move on. Number 5. This is from Huffington Post. This is a Florida story, Rob.
Yeah.
My wife found this one because she was sitting with me when I was trying to do the World Wide Web of Weird. I'm like, I need another story. And she's like, how about this one? And this is, I thought I had bad neighbors. Man, this story takes the cake of bad neighbors. Vomiting vultures invade Florida vacation home. A neighbor described the encounter as a vile, vicious, traumatic event. A New York couple's luxurious vacation house in Florida has been taken over by a dozen of black vultures that are vomiting and defecating everywhere. The Palm Beach Post reports that Casmano family can't even visit the $702,000 home they purchased earlier this year in the Ibis Golf and Country Club. So bad they can't visit their super expensive home. Sorry, this is awful. Casmino described the smell as like 1,000 rotting corpses. The vultures have destroyed screen enclosures, have overtaken the pool and barbecue. The few items the family have visited, they've had to park their car in the garage, or birds peck at them with their beaks. A neighbor, Cheryl Katz, tells the Post she got it even worse because she lives next door to a person. Oh, this is the other person that lives next door to him, who's feeding the vultures and the other wildlife. So there's somebody feeding these things, like chicken. What does it say? What does it say? They what is she feeding them? Oh, I missed that part. She said, getting worse because she lives next door to the person who's feeding the vultures and other wildlife. In May, she said the vultures tore through her pool enclosure and couldn't figure out how to get out. Imagine 20 vultures trapped, biting each other, and they can bite through bone. They would be banging against my window, running away from a bird that was attacking them. Blood was everywhere. It was vile, vicious, traumatic event. And it was Memorial Day, so no company I called would come out to help me. Finally, 3 police officers arrived. They removed the screen and shooed away the vultures. Since she has chronic lymphatic leukemia, which leaves her vulnerable to infection, she had to be extra careful going outside and even have someone power wash the patio. So this poor woman's dying of leukemia, or trying to maybe not die, recover, and she's got vultures circling her house because of her crazy neighbor. The homeowner blames Kat's neighbor, who they claim is excessively feeding the wildlife. Kat said she's seen the neighbor give bags of bones, bags of dog food, and even rotted chickens to the vulture. Neighborhood Association President Gordon Holden said they've warned the woman, but they're limited in what they can do because the vultures are migratory birds and protected by federal law. Holden said vultures were not a problem in the neighborhood before this spring. He said they've contacted Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission to issue warnings, but so far they've been ignored by the neighbor. So what is wrong with it? Who they got like
vomiting, the dog food and stuff.
Yeah.
Is this an arch villain that lives next door to feeding vultures?
There's tons of those birds around where I live here. I mean, they're I see them every day, like dozens and dozens of them. So yeah, I don't know where this is in Florida, but yeah, I don't feed them. They clean up the road.
Well, this is why they're vomiting and defecating everywhere, because they're eating all this stuff they're not supposed to be eating.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Well, if I find out more about the vulture lady who's feeding the vultures, I'll let everybody know. All right, next one up. This was very viral. I saw some people share this. This one, I don't know. This reminds me of Hypnotoad from Futurama, if anybody knows what that is. But this is Hypnosnail. This is zombie snail spotted in Taiwan. I got the article from Coast to Coast on this one. A hiker in Taiwan was mystified when he stumbled upon a strange snail that spotted pulsating green and orange tentacles. Yes, this is creepy here. Go ahead and play it, Rob, while I talk here. Yeah. Yeah. This is, they need to take, yeah, they need to take the snail to the alien stock. The hiker in Taiwan was mystified when he stumbled upon a strange snail that sported pulsating green and orange tentacles. The creepy-looking creature was reportedly spotted by tourists named Lin Ruin, who was exploring a hillside country in the Changgu County. The man's visit came to a screeching halt when he noticed something flashing on the ground and looked down to see this very weird creature that he initially did not believe was real. And like I said, the share screen kind of whites it out. You got to see this video for yourself too, because man, the colors that are coming through on the scene. To the delight of some and no doubt the horror of others, Ruin managed to film the eerie snail, and the footage is rather mesmerizing. As it turns out, the reason for the creature's unsettling appearance may be more unnerving than the way it looks. According to wildlife experts, the unfortunate snail has fallen victim to a parasitic flatworm that has seized control of its body and turned the creature into a proverbial zombie. In this particular instance, the sinister snail's upper a usurper was able to cause the creature tentacles to pulse in a manner so that they resembled a caterpillar. Purpose of that, scientists say, is to attract birds that will prey on the snail and also ingest the parasite, which will then be able to reproduce inside the avian host. Ultimately, the bird will not only deposit the whole new generation of flatworms out into the whole world via its droppings. Oh, so gross.
Insane.
But the thing's like so memorized, and this share screen doesn't do it justice. You guys got to find this video on. Look, just type in zombie snail, and if you're listening, go see this. The scene is creepy. Oh my god. It's like the rave snail, alien stock. This should be their mascot.
Yeah, they should use this for a poster.
Oh yeah, I mean,
another thing to note, to alter a creature like that, to attract and to know how to do that, to get another creature to attract to it, is just crazy.
Yeah, how does
sorcery is this?
Like, let's make it look like
how does light? I hear Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park. Life finds a way. Yeah. Life finds a way to do weird stuff. I mean, this life finds a way to like turn a creature into a zombie, so another creature will eat it, so it can reproduce inside that other creature. How does that happen? I think Prometheus, like the aliens. If anybody go see Prometheus, will creep you out. But like how life starts in that, it's just crazy what life can do, and it turn a zombie into a snail, or a snail into a zombie. I mean, it's the weirdest thing. It's like memorizing. I don't know. Like it's it's a hypno snail, like hypno
snail, exactly.
Man, it is just creepy. And it's like, come here, birds, eat me, eat me.
Apparently.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the last one. This one, it hits close to home for me. I live in Michigan City, Indiana, right on the tip. I always tell people, if you want to know where my town is, look at the tip of Lake Michigan. I'm about there. That's my town. This comes from AP News. Steel mill. Sorry for the spill that killed fish in closed beaches. Sorry. Portage. Yeah, this is in Portage, Indiana. Steel company apologized for a spill of, and I thought this was fitting for our guest tonight, Annwyn Avalon, Water Witchcraft. Maybe she has some tips for the steel mill, how to fix their problem. They need some witchcraft for sure. A steel company apologized for a spill of cyanide and ammonia that led to fish kill and prompted the closure of beaches along Lake Michigan. ArcelorMittal issued a statement Friday night saying it apologizes and accepts responsibility for the incident from the Burns Harbor facility. National Park Service closed the Portage Lakefront and Riverwalk Beach areas at Indiana Dunes National Park and waters out to 300 feet. The nearby city of Ogden Dunes also closed its beach. The fish killed occurred near a yacht club and marina in Portage, about 25 miles east of Chicago. ArcelorMittal said the spill resulted after Burns Harbor Mill experienced a failure at the blast furnace water recirculation system. This isolated event resulted in the release of water waste containing elevated levels of ammonia and cyanide. The recirculating system has been repaired and normal operations have resumed. Although sampling is ongoing, we are confident that the facility's water system is operating with normal ranges, the statement said. Yeah, we're going to trust you. The statement did not say when the spill occurred, but Portage Mayor John Cannon told Northwest Indiana Times that the Indiana Department of Environmental Management and others learned of it Monday. The state agency said the mill released the chemicals into the Little Calumet River East Branch. It was unclear how much of the two chemicals entered the Lake Michigan tributary. Portage Port Authority, a local marina development, and various individuals have filed notice of their intent to sue ArcelorMittal for violations of the Clean Water Act. Attorney Thomas Dogan told the newspaper. So everybody's lawyering up, and I didn't even get the dang article up for people to see. We're sorry. We killed your fish and put poison in your water again. This is not the first time.
Man.
Not the first time.
It makes me wonder if they just don't say, "Oh, screw it," and just dump it, and we'll just pay the fine because it's cheaper than doing it the right way and easier.
Well, when you start like saying we got to deregulate, I do agree there are regulation. Some things get overregulated, bureaucracies, and slow stuff down, but not on the environment.
Exactly.
Not on the environment, not on a lake, the Great Lake of Lake Michigan. Let's not pour cyanide and other chemicals in there, please. They've been expanding business and making more steel, I guess, and industry's on a boom, but let's not poison our lakes. That'd be nice. Thank you. Your sorry means very little. You're going to get sued to high hell.
Exactly.
But that's it for the World Wide Web of Weird. Our guest tonight is Annwyn Avalon, author of Water Witchcraft, Magic and Lore from the Celtic Tradition. We will have phone lines open later in the show, so check that out. The phone numbers will be, of course, they roll across my screen for people to watch, but I give them out after a second commercial break just so people don't call in. too early. Don't forget, we have a Patreon page. We could use your help. Donate to the show. We're going to have I'm going to be doing a special podcast on EVPs, ITC. I'll be playing some EVPs and talking about ITC and all that. I did that on a recent interview too on Heather Wade's Kingdom of Nye, but I got more in-depth detail I want to get into and experimenting with some stuff. Rob, I didn't get to talk to you. I'm experimenting with something after the show tonight too. I'll tell you later. All right. Posted later on YouTube for everybody else to watch if we do. All right, guys, we'll be back after a short commercial break.
He is conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
This fall, a new hard-hitting police drama is coming to Friday night. He was a well-to-do cop transferred to a troubled precinct downtown. His new partner is a space traveler with a passion for justice. It's Yuppie and the Alien.
Look, you might vaporize dissidents in Alpha Centauri, but in this precinct, we do it by the book.
I'm so terribly sorry, Captain.
Goog, I'm sorry. Don't miss this one-of-a-kind police drama. They're fighting crime the hard way in designer clothes with $250,000 sports car and a UFO.
Partner, let's go cruise in the car and look moody.
One tough downtown precinct, two outsiders doing things their way. Yuppie and the Alien on VBC.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
Somewhere between science and superstition, there is another world, a world of darkness. Nobody expected it. Nobody believed it. And nothing could stop it. The one hope. The only hope. The Exorcist. Warner Brothers presents William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist. The Exorcist, directed by William Friedkin. The Exorcist, rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Bring life to the dead. 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 Enter the occult world of necromancy. You were brought here for one purpose. Necromancy.
A ceremony dating back to the pre-Christian era is the art of reviving the dead. It requires involvement with evil spirits by the person performing the act.
The devil god brings life to the dead
No, please. No, please.
and death to the living. Necromancy, starring Orson Welles and Pamela Franklin. From Cinerama releasing. In color, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe. 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Annwyn Avalon, author of Water Witchcraft, Magic and Lore from the Celtic Tradition. Annwyn Avalon is a witch, healer, priestess, dancer, artist, writer, and above all else, a teacher. She's a priestess of Triskele Rose, Rambling Rose, and creator of OuroboRose School of Magic. I'm sorry if I butchered that. In addition, she's a published writer, accomplished dancer, and educated in both the academic and the historic arts of study. She's accomplished in dance, art, and witchcraft and is available for workshops, performances, and classes. They have strong emphasis on water witchcraft, Avalon, and art. She can book for any number of workshops, performances, and even henna body art. I know one of the things, she's a belly dancer, which I want to get into that tonight because I don't think I've ever known a belly dancer. So I'm interested in that as well. We will have the phone lines open after the second commercial break. Call in tonight, and I'll give out those phone numbers later. But water is something, like I said at the beginning of the show, that I have a love-hate relationship with. Well, and Wynn here, we're going to find out, actually has a really deep connection to. I have a fear of water, so maybe she can help me with that. But let's go ahead and get to our guest. Are you there with me, Annwyn?
Yes, hello.
Hi. Thank you for being on the show tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
After our third attempt.
Yeah.
Like I said, water and me have a bad history. You can ask my mom. I've been a bad swimmer and afraid of water since my earliest memories, before I was even 1 year old. One of my first memories is getting dunked under in water and losing my mind before I could even talk, So I've always had a fear of water, but a fascination with it, like with boats. I actually have a big fascination with big ships and boats. Maybe in a past life, I actually had a medium say I went missing the Bermuda Triangle in a past life. I was like, that would make sense. My love of boats and love of mystery and disappearances, but my total innate fear of drowning and water and typhoons.
Yeah, I have a similar thing with fire, actually. And I do think it has a past life related thing. And so I think that a lot of those fears, especially when it comes to the elements that we have when we're so young, are memories from a past life.
Yeah, that's what I've always wondered. I've had dreams that one of my reoccurring dreams is I'm on a beach and I'm there with all my different loved ones, and there's this huge tsunami coming, just a big wall of water. And I'm like I just know we're screwed, like there's no running from it. And it's like, it's a reoccurring dream I've had throughout my life and I hate it. And I've just, I've had a fear of water all my life. My wife, she loves it. I mean, she wants to go swimming and do all these things. And she takes the kid to the beach, took him kayaking. I don't. I actually get anxiety with my kids in the water. I have to stay away and not look.
Well, and having a healthy fear for the water is not a bad thing. It does have that dual nature.
Well, definitely it's because it's powerful. And that's what, let's get into that tonight. So how did this all start for you, Annwyn? What road led you down the path of becoming into water witchcraft?
Oh, so it was a long road, a long and winding river, more like. So it actually goes all the way back to my childhood. I had a really deep connection with water. I was born as under the astrological sun of Cancer with a Pisces moon. And so I have a lot of water in my my natal chart already. But and my dad was in the Navy. I had like those type of connections. Right. But I ended up spending most of my childhood growing up in Florida. And not only were we at the beach constantly because we lived about 10 minutes away, but we were constantly at different springs. There's so many springs in Florida. We would visit a lot of those, rivers. I remember playing in like puddles, after hurricanes and all that kind of stuff. But when I was about 10, we moved to another place in Florida, and we ended up with our house on a wetland preserve. And I pretty much just spent all of my time in the swamp. And, most 10-year-old girls are putting makeup on, and I had my Wellingtons and was catching spiders in jars and snake skins and like up to my knees in swamp water, climbing trees, all that kind of stuff. And as I got older and I started looking back at some of this and learning a lot about myself and the occult and like the path that I was on, I looked back and was like, oh, wow, it was present the whole time.
Were your parents, I would have to say, what did you grow up like in a very open kind of family, or was it religious, strict religious? Like
very religious.
Oh boy.
So there was benefits to that because it was very, very religious and I was homeschooled. So I could finish my work at noon and spend the next 6 hours outside, or till dusk. So I didn't have to worry about, getting on a bus or going to school. I had a few more hours to myself. But the downside was that anything that wasn't Christianity was just pure evil.
Right.
But the funny part about it was that there was still this acknowledgement of magic and of witchcraft and spirits. And of course, they were all thought to be so evil and bad.
They believed in it, but it was of the devil.
Correct. And my mother was... she was born in Birmingham, and so she brought a lot of these like English folk beliefs into our life. Things like horse brass, which are used a lot in folk magic, and nursery rhymes and fairy tales and certain things like that. They were kind of there, and so I had this like real big draw to my ancestral homeland. So fast forward, I ended up doing like high school in Arizona. That was awful. And it was really bad. But as soon as I could move out, I moved to Flagstaff. And it's really interesting because there is a sacred water site not too far from Flagstaff in Sedona. It's about 30 minutes outside of both of them. And it was a sacred well that a First Nations sacred woman actually tended, and her little hut is still there. And there's a lot of like lore about this.
That sounds really familiar. I have to ask my parents when we went to Arizona if we went and saw a lot of kind of different stuff like that. I don't know. It sounds really familiar.
It was called Montezuma's Well.
God, it sounds familiar. I don't know.
It's really close to the big ruins that are out there as well. So you probably
I would have loved it as a kid if they did take me there. I always love that stuff.
Yeah, it was fascinating. And then the next thing you know, I'm getting married and having a baby, and
that's life.
And I'm living on the East Coast now, and I'm like really close to the water. I'm not on the beach, but I can see like the water from my backyard.
But if you could be on the beach, you would be.
I would be, yeah. I mean,
if expensive real estate.
Right. And I wasn't even on the beach side. I was on the Sound, which is that water between. Usually you have to cross over that to get to the actual beach side. So that's kind of when things really start to pick up, because I ended up moving to Japan for about 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And turns out that there was a lot of sacred sites there, of course, and there's even still like working priestesses. The old religions have not died down, they're quite alive. And I ended up seeking out a pagan circle, and I found an American pagan circle
in Japan.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it was on the military base.
Well, yeah.
So it was, they had a little group there already, but I ended up attending, and the next thing you know, we're doing ritual together. Sometimes, I was creating ritual, teaching classes, but they had an adopt-a-beach, and this beach, we spent a lot of time on picking up a lot of plastic, a lot of just nets and just trash. And there was this like really strange like cement type of, I guess, shrine, but it just kind of looked like cinder blocks. And I remember asking like, hey, what was this? And they were like, oh, this is supposed to be a shrine to a sea goddess. It's one of the reasons that they got the Adopt-a-Beach is because the person that was in charge of it knew that we were like a sacred, nature loving group. And so we ended up with being able to tend that, and lots of magical things happened. And then I headed back to North Carolina, again near the water. And this time I decided to train in witchcraft. I had my awakening. I had realized that there was a lot more out there, that I had been practicing things that I didn't quite know what they were, but I'd just been going through the motions. And then I read about it in a book and was like, this is a thing.
So you're naturally doing it?
Yeah.
So it's like, that's what they say. There's some people, I mean, is this true that some people are just like natural witches? They're naturally doing magic without being taught or reading a spell book.
Yeah. And that's I picked up one book, opened it, and was like, holy crap, this is me. Like, this book is actually describing me. And then from that moment on, it was just like diving into it. And so I ended up going and seeking out a coven, and my teachers were very heavily influenced by water. Of course, one of them was also a Cancer, and the other was a quadruple Scorpio. So there was a lot of like really intense water in my training, just kind of that undercurrent. And then I initiated and moved forward with life, and ended up moving to the West Coast. And that is where I started Triskele Rose, which is an Avalonian witchcraft tradition. But that is also where I started to create my 9-month water course, which runs March 1st every year is when we begin. And it's 9 months of water magic. And it's printed lesson, like you get the emails you get the lessons in your email. But I started writing this because I got to Arizona and was like, where's all the water?
Well, yeah, it seems like the worst place on earth for you. Or maybe Nevada or Mexico, even worse. But I mean, yeah, you being out in the desert, that's the opposite of water. So
difficult. It was really difficult, but having that lack of physical water really had me tuning into the spiritual waters. And I started a pretty rigorous sacred bathing routine. And then I started finding water sites in and around Phoenix. One revisiting Montezuma as well. And then the other is called Tonopah Hot Springs. And it's just outside of Phoenix, but I was really surprised that they even had a spring nearby. And so from all of this, and I started doing a lot of research into into the Celtic lore because it's my ancestry. And from that, the water magic course was born. And I had started teaching water magic classes locally, and all of it just kind of merged into this really big course. And I taught that for a few years. And then I went to Pantheacon one year and talked to my editor. And the next thing you know, a book was happening.
They have a way of getting those out of you.
the long short version.
Well, so what you said Avalonian? I'm not. What is Avalonian?
So Avalonian, so Avalon itself is the other world, or a location in the other world. And it's first mentioned in the Old Welsh text. And from about, I think it's still about the 11th century. And so it becomes, it shows up in literature there. And you start to see it over and over and over again. And some of the most famous mythological characters who are based on live spirits and gods and goddesses are like King Arthur.
That's what I was thinking of. That's what it sound familiar as something from King Arthur.
Yes, exactly. So when he died, the water priestess or the lake lady or fairy women or
Lady of the Lake
priestess, Lady of the Lake is one of them. Yes, they took Arthur's body to Avalon.
That's where I thought it sounded familiar, right?
Yes, so that's where you first hear about it. And then you also hear about it in short descriptions in these old texts about these groups of 9 priestesses, or the Avalonian priestesses. And then fast forward, we have this wonderful, rich location in England called Glastonbury. And it is what many people call the modern day Avalon. And partially because it's believed to be one of the places that Avalon existed or could be accessed. And another reason is because supposedly King Arthur was buried there. And that was from actually the Christian monks who built Glastonbury Abbey said that they had uncovered his body. So that brought in another layer of, oh, this must be Avalon because that's where King Arthur was brought. But you know, everybody has a different theory on where it is, when it is, how to access it. I do believe that Glastonbury is a major epicenter, access point, almost as if the dimensions are overlapping.
Well, they always built churches on places that seem to be ley lines, and they even the Christian church knew places were. Well, usually, sometimes they just really built them over the pagan site just to kill that pagan religion there.
Yep, and most of those pagan sites were associated with water.
It's a powerful thing.
That's why there's so many Christian churches built near sacred wells or have holy wells or near sacred springs, is because that's where the old pagan temples were. And you may have had this sacred spring dedicated to a fairy queen, and then fast forward, Christian occupation takes over, renames everything, and all of a sudden it's Saint Anne or Saint Mary. And so a lot of the saints that you find associated with these churches over in Europe actually are the new names for the old spirits that still dwell there.
Well, the church knew, like, these people are, they need something more than just the one God. They needed to give them something else. The co-op what they were already doing,
Exactly.
Yeah, it's always I'm a big history buff, and I'm not an expert of any kind of anything, but I always love the old King Arthur tales. Who knows if they were real? I mean, did King Arthur really exist? Do you feel like King Arthur really existed?
I do, but I don't think that it's how we think it is.
Well, of course. Even though I do love what's the 1970s Excalibur movie is one of my favorite movies.
Right, that's a good one, and I really like the old mini series of Merlin.
Oh, I love that. That was such a good mini series. I'm gonna geek out. Sorry, people. That was it was totally Hollywoodish, whatever. But they did such a good job with that. With now I lost the actor's name, and it was played Merlin. But it was such a good show.
That one was good. I have it on DVD. I love watching that one. Nimue is I think my favorite character in that particular.
She was the
version.
Which one was she? The Lady in Lake?
No, she's Merlin's lover.
Oh, Nimue. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was such a good.
Yeah, she's a beautiful actress too.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen her in a couple other things. I believe she's French.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love for them to redo it, but
Well,
then
they did a
with,
sequel. I'm sorry, geeking out again. They did do it like a whole other series, and then they did like a TV show based off of it. You know, a lot of people don't know that. Kind of fell under the radar. There was another movie, another movie they did with Liam. No, what is his name? Sam Nielsen? No, is that it? I can't remember the guy that played Merlin.
Face, but I know. Cannot
Jurassic Park. Yeah.
Right. Yes, he's in the first Jurassic Park.
Yeah, Sam Neill.
I don't know.
Sam Neill.
Gosh.
Sam Neill.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Go check it out, people. Sorry, we geek out on the show. It's Paranormal Soup, people. We just mix it up. We talk about all kinds of stuff. Get over it. Okay, continue. Sorry.
Where were we? I don't even remember. Church taking over.
Taking over. Yes. That movie series just really points that out. That's what I was getting at. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, and those movies, it's almost like, do you believe if King Arthur was real? So
Right.
I believe that there were these priestesses and these like otherworldly women, because not only are they documented in the same text that King Arthur is documented in, but they're documented in the letters that the Roman generals were writing home to Caesar. And so there's a lot of parallels of these particular 9 women and what they could do. And it's almost as if you're doing a puzzle and you've completed like the top corner and the border. And then you're trying to make a complete picture from that. And you can kind of guess, but once you have everything put together, it might be something completely different. And so I think that we're missing certain key pieces, because I don't even think that these old texts from like the 11th centuries are the originals.
Oh no, they're just like the Bible. It's been rewritten and it's been copied and pasted down. It was oral for a long time before it was written, you know.
Yep. And it's just what survived. So who knows what didn't survive? Or that old telephone game that we had back when we were kids, and you'd say like one thing, like you'd say something, and then by the time you got like to the 10th person passing it on, it may have completely changed. But there's still remnants or puzzle pieces that are correct and can fit in certain areas.
I'm a Gnostic, so I question everything, and I'm 50-50 on King Arthur, is if it was real or if it was just really good story written back in the day that just was so old that it caught on to become reality. What happens, 200 years from now, society collapses and things come back and people are going to think Superman was a real person or a real alien on Earth. I don't know.
It's a thing. I've thought about that as well. Like some of our pop culture references, especially with superheroes, like what happens if society collapsed and all they found was like a Thor action figure and a Spider-Man action figure?
Yeah.
Some archaeological.
We would go to the Church of Spider-Man. My 3-year-old would be like, he'd be, praise the Lord, Spider-Man. He would be there,
Because, plastic's going to be around forever anyway. So that's all that, people in the future are going to find are all of our weird plastic things. They're
floating in the ocean. Like these people were jerks. I don't know if you saw any of the beginning of the show before you were on, but I live in Michigan City, Indiana, which is right at the tip of Lake Michigan. And just recently, our ArcelorMittal steel mill, ArcelorMittal, whatever you say, the jerks, dumped some cyanide and ammonia into the Lake Michigan, closed down the beaches and everything.
We've just got to stop doing this. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And it's not the first time they've done it. They've put crap in there before. Whoops, sorry, our bad. Sue us. We'll just pay it up. We'll pay the fine and blah, 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 and move on.
Oh, right. Yeah, because they can afford to pay the fine.
Yep.
They can afford to pay the fine, but who can't afford clean water are the people that can't, that should, I don't know. I'll get really angry about that. So,
it's all right to get angry.
Keeping our waters clean. For several years, I was hosting water side rituals, like worldwide, connecting people at the same time at their own body of water and trying to do rituals for healing and protection. In fact, my book even has a spell to bind companies that harm
we need
water.
that here. So what would it take? No, let's get into this a little bit of the magic here. We got time. So what would it take? Like I if I was a practitioner and I wanted to do something to try to affect the big steel company here, like to bind them from doing that again, what would it take? What kind of spell would we be talking about?
Oh, well, there's so many different things you could do. I mean, you could do just little folk magic type of things, or you could take it to a full-on ritual. But a simple thing that a lot of people can do is taking a shell of some type, like a clam or anything that has both sides still intact, and taking the logo of the company or the CEO of the company or whoever it is.
I like how you're talking. I like what you're thinking. Keep going.
Or whoever it is that's making these decisions, and taking their photo and putting them, like folding it up and putting it in the shell, and then taking a cord, usually like a black string, and binding the shell together. And as you go around each time, kind of putting a knot in it and saying things like, with this knot, I bind you, and doing it again and again and again and again, until you feel that it's nice and solid. And then you can deposit it at a crossroads, or you could bury it and near the company's location, or perhaps in their planter out front, or you could just keep it on your working space and continually feed energy to it constantly.
I just want to make the CEO responsible. Like, you ever seen Witches of Eastwick, and like they make the woman puke up all the cherry nuts? That would be great. Something really gross. And is that bad magic if I try to do something like that?
I don't really think that there's, I don't know. There's
no such thing. Oh, sorry. I'll let you talk. Sorry.
I don't know if it's bad. I think that sometimes we do aggressive things for good reasons.
So you're not opposed. Let's get that out. You're not opposed to using some powerful I don't know, a Witch of Eastwick kind of puking up cherries kind of magic. What you call it?
Because for a long time we've tried talking, and we've tried protesting, and we've tried healing, and if we're going to practice magic, might as well put it towards something that's going to make an actual change. So if we have to get aggressive, we have to get aggressive. You wouldn't walk down an alley and watch someone get mugged. You'd jump in and you'd start swinging. And so it's the same thing with magic. Our entire planet is, in one way or another, being harmed and destroyed by these big corporate giants who have the money to just pay the fine, and not worry about clean water
or stealing water. There's companies that are literally stealing water from people.
Yeah, like Nestle's.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect example.
I stopped buying their products.
Yeah, I don't either.
Because of it. And I mean, the waters, they it's not even like they're bottling the water like at the source. They're altering it, and they're adding sodium and all sorts of weird things to it.
And it tastes like crap. I've tasted it, and I'm like, this doesn't even taste like water. It tastes like crap.
And a lot of the bottled water out there is distilled water as well. And that's not water that our body does really well drinking. It likes to have fresh, living water. And distilled water is water that has been boiled, turned into steam, and then brought back down into water. And so it's great if you're working transformation spells or rituals, or shape-shifting. But for your daily drinking water, humanity needs clean water that's coming from the aquifers, straight into our homes. And it's a human right, and we deserve, at the very least, to have that. And if we don't do something about it now, it's going to continue to be a problem. And I've read a few articles, and I've heard other people talk like the water wars are coming. Water wars are coming. Here's the thing: they're not. They're here.
Yeah, no, they're already doing it. I mean,
middle of it right now. And so magic has always been used as a tool of the oppressed and the poor in order to make change when they could not, make.
So are you doing things, you think, to certain maybe CEOs or politicians or whoever in your own magic rituals?
Confirm nor deny.
No, confirmed or deny.
I mean, it's in my book. So I definitely put things that I practice in my book. But so there's this thing in magic that is often taught, and it's called a couple different things. Sometimes it's called like the words of the mage or the words of the sphinx or the four powers. But it's to know, to will, to dare, and to keep silent. And so the keep silent part is a really good thing to practice because it helps to not only tell your enemies, I don't need to broadcast to the people that could reverse my work what's going on if I am doing anything. But we have these like gigantic like online like get together and curse this and get together and find
scream
that.
at the sky.
And I think that it's so foolish. Like, no football team ever was like, hey, we have this huge game tomorrow. Here's all our plays.
I've always wondered for people that are celebrities or politicians, people that are in the media, everybody knows, like how that affects them on a magical level. Like, if there are people out there that are cursing celebrities or politicians or whatever, if that's going to affect them.
Well, and I think if you're going around yelling about it, absolutely. Because it's really easy for somebody to say a prayer to counteract it. I think with the very first curse Trump thing that came out, one of the things that happened was that because it was broadcast so widely, Christian mystics showed up at Trump's tower with mirrors saying counter prayers.
Yeah, I remember that.
So that's just magical warfare.
I'm here shaking my head. Is like, how the hell did we get to this? What the hell happened? Yeah,
it's crazy, right? But this is, there's the magical battle of Britain, and this is the Annwyn paraphrased version. Is basically in World War II. Hitler was getting ready to.
Oh yeah, this is really interesting. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, and so what happened is Dion Fortune went around and she wrote a whole bunch of letters, snail mail, to individual practitioners, witches, mystics, and they collectively showed up at their magical space at the same day, at the same time, and they did massive amounts of psychic work. Hitler never made it across, and nobody could ever figure out why. And I do believe that one of the reasons is because we had some of the biggest witches and mystics of our time working magic. But the thing that they didn't do was put it in the paper.
Well, of course not. Especially not back then.
So their stuff worked. And it worked, and I think partially because they contained the energy and they contained the magic in their silence. So long way of answering your question, but yes, I do things. I'm not going to talk about them.
Gotcha. But you had to give an explanation, so I understood why. Right.
I do like to put a lot of my stuff on the internet and stuff like that. And the reverse side of that is sometimes social media is a really great way to enhance a spell, especially if you're looking for energy to kind of draw and pull something out. But a lot of times I share stuff online that's been finished as well instead of active things.
So the spell's complete.
Correct.
So then you can talk about it. So don't talk about your work until it's done.
Right, like the first rule of Witch Club is don't talk about Witch Club.
Well, it has been kind of a secret thing, for the years of course, because of burning of witches or hanging of witches, you kind of have to keep things on the down low anyways.
Yeah. And only recently in the past 5 years, I think, has it really taken off where you don't have to be so quiet. Although I still know people in the South and other people with government jobs that do have to keep it silent because they're worried that they'll get fired or lose their job over it.
Or not get hired.
But I mean, even in the 90s and early 2000s, you know, there was crazy stuff going on and everybody thought it was evil. They said the Satanic Panic, of course.
They had that in the 80s, you know, the metal bands.
80s. Yep. And then all of the witch wars that started happening in like the 90s and the early 2000s when every witch hated the other witch. But they stirred up a lot
Witches
of
gonna be
trouble
witches, man.
Right. I know. Arguing about something.
They're more united front now, right?
I think there's united factions.
Right.
And that's, I guess, one thing that's really good about like having witchcraft be really popular right now, is that the factions are growing in strength. And even though I don't know if as a community, pagan or witch or whatever will ever be able to come together, because I feel like there's still a lot of differences that we have to work out. I mean, I would love for that to happen. I'd love to see that, but I just don't know if we're there yet, I guess.
If history tells you anything, your chances aren't good.
Right. But the good news is the factions are growing, which means that we have really strong groups of practitioners. So that in itself is good. That's progress.
Definitely progress. Now, one of the things is, you know, you're a water witch, and we're going to get more into that. But are there, you know, people that have a fire sign? They're more into fire witchcraft, or are there the elements like that to witchcraft?
So yes, no. You definitely could have strong fire natal chart and be a water witch. It definitely doesn't mean that you have to be in a certain, like if you're born under Aries, you have to be a fire witch. But it is an interesting thing that kind of happens where people really tend to be drawn to that element or whatever element is strong in their charts. But it doesn't have to be that way. You know, if you've got like quadruple Capricorn, you can definitely still practice water magic. I think though that there's a lot of us that have those charts, and that's like one of the big clues in our own like life path map that was like, oh hey, this is kind of a thing, I should pay attention. But it definitely doesn't mean like you're automatically a water witch.
But some people are going to maybe be stronger with one element over the other.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Perfect example is me and air. Air is like the least strongest element in my chart, in my practice, just with me in general. I struggle with it, whereas other people struggle with water. I know some people that are just really into fire priestessing or fire witchcraft or magic and using, you know, fire for different things like that as well. So, and then for the longest time, earth, I think, dominated. Earth and fire, I feel like really dominated the witchcraft and the pagan scene for so many years because we have 1,000 books on candle magic and
right.
even more on earth magic, whether that's crystals or gardening and herbs, or just like working with the land itself. So.
Well, you always see like I know movies, but you always see in movies, you know, that there's like, of course, like The Craft or whatever, but 4 witches come and they're like, one's water, one's earth, one's fire, one's, air, you know. Is that true? Like if you bring 4 witches together with all that are strong in both in one particular element each, that they can do some powerful stuff being combined?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, anytime that you get a couple strong witches together, and it doesn't even have to be the 4 elements. 3 is also a really big, powerful number, and we see that in pop culture magic as well with Charmed and stuff like that. Side note, there's a really fun British show about witches called Switch.
I saw a preview. That's one of the ones we wanted to check out. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. It's fun. It's cute. The one thing I'll say is I'm really sad that they didn't continue it on.
Of course.
It just kind of like comes to a halt and you're like ready for season 2 and nothing. I mean,
TV.
it does finish up the storyline, but yeah, but they use the elements in that. And I really like how they use that, like that terminology, switch, because magic is change, right? It's change in accordance with will. And so switch, it's just like a cool word to be kind of be like, oh, it's changing, it's changed. So they call their spells switches. So yeah, it's fun. But yeah, absolutely. Going back to your original question, I think that would be some very powerful magic that could be done with 4 very powerful elemental witches, or even 5, kind of bringing in that spirit element as well.
Oh, so like 5, that's a whole other element, the spirit element.
Yes. So in the pentagram, there's the 5 different points, and we often put an element for each of them.
Right.
With the top being spirit. And spirit can be expressed in so many ways. I mean, each of the elements obviously could express it, but I think that someone who works as a medium or an oracle, someone that really taps straight into the divine and can commune or channel that energy, would be a wonderful spirit witch.
So you get spirit, earth, fire, air, and water. You bring those 5 people together. They're all really strong witches in that. Do you think they could do some serious change in mojo?
I think so. I do. I really do. I mean, there's a reason in much of the modern Wiccan and pagan and witchcraft practices where we call in the 4 elements. There's a reason that they're present in the circle already. And some covens do assign different people to different elements. They may do it for an entire year, where you work the entire element constantly throughout the year, and then you change its Samhain. But a lot of times covens will have those 4 strong elements present, and then people that are actually tending them or working that energy within the circle.
Now, do you have your own coven for yourself?
I do. Yes. So I am part of a tradition out of North Carolina. But like I said earlier, I had created my own, which has a lot of this Avalonian influence. And it's a hybrid of what I was trained in. But what happened was I ended up with someone that I trained, a priestess that's out there in North Carolina, and she has a coven. And then when I lived in Phoenix, I had another coven. And when I left, we had a priestess take over. And just recently, we've had another rotation after 3 years. And this the new priestess is taking over. And out here in Oregon, my 3rd location, we have another coven. So we actually have 3 covens across the U.S. working very similar magic, sometimes in conjunction.
So all 3 coverings,
awesome.
like you guys decide you're going to work on one thing together across state lines or whatever?
Yep, that could be a thing.
But you can't talk about what you're working on.
Right.
Right. Gotcha. Now, doing this, I mean, for somebody who's never done witchcraft or wherever, they wanted to get started, what would be your suggestion for somebody who was like interested, like, I want to be a witch? Where do they start? Where should they begin?
Oh, well, first off, you should be true to yourself. I think that we see somebody and we think, oh, that's the definition of a witch or a doctor or whatever, it doesn't matter. But we see something or somebody and we're like, that's that definition. I have to be that. And that's not necessarily true. And I think that for new witches, that's one of the most important things is, like, you're going to be you, no matter what type of, witchcraft you're practicing. It's still going to have your essence in there. And so to try and force yourself to practice a certain way that doesn't flow with you is not going to help. So go with the flow. But the other thing is magical GPS. And there's actually a blog about this. I wrote a blog about it on Pathos. I have a blog under Pathos Pagan called The Water Witch. So you can find this blog post over there. But it's called Magical GPS. And basically what it is grounding, protecting, and shielding. And so everybody needs to be able to take their energy and send it into the earth, or to turn anxiety or frustration or excess energy into something positive. And that's really important because it sets up the foundation for everything that you're going to practice. If you can't ground yourself and take your own energy within your own auric field and change it, how are you going to expect to change anything else? So that's the first thing, is to really get a handle on grounding. And thankfully, my book has a whole bunch of really wonderful watery techniques to ground. But if anybody's interested in it, just Google. There's so many different practices. I mean, one simple one is going and hugging a tree. But another, another is burying your feet in the sand.
Well, you hear, is there a danger for people that just like willy-nilly get into witchcraft?
Yes.
Like they don't ground themselves. What are some, what can happen if somebody doesn't, go the wrong way with it?
Some people, okay. People might disagree. Some witches might disagree with me on this. But witchcraft, a large part of witchcraft includes spirit work. And you might be like, well, what about atheist witches? Because atheist witches are a thing.
There is? That's a new one. I mean, I didn't know about that. We'll have to get into that too, but continue.
But they work with ancestors or ancestral spirits. And so there absolutely is. I mean, you're opening yourself up to energies. And I like to use this little analogy. So when you become a witch or a magical person, and you are stepping into this magical world, it's almost like you're on a dark street and every person has their own little shop. And so you start playing with witchcraft, and what happens is that vacant shop all of a sudden has a coming soon sign. Yeah. And then you really kind of get into magic. And the next thing you know, you're open, your front door's open, lights on, and people want to come and see what the new thing is. What's this shop about? Hey, we should go check it out. There's a new person on the block. And so it's kind of like that in the spirit world as well. If you start out just kind of playing with things, you get that, coming soon. But the second that you really hit on something, you open your front door to lots of spirits, lots of energies coming in to just kind of check you out. And not all of them are good.
Right.
And it's foolish to think that they are. There's a lot out there that are good. There's a lot out there that are neutral. There's a lot that are tricksters and are just going to mess with you to mess with you. There's a lot that are incredibly baneful. And then there's a lot that are good, but humanity has really messed up recently.
Oh, I think we've been messing up for a long time. I don't think it's recent.
Like 2000 years recently. Recent for the spirit world. And so they don't take kindly to us. And so it takes a while to kind of prove to some of them, like, hey, I'm here to help, not to continue to destroy everything. And another thing with ancestors, I mean, we always think like, oh, our ancestors have our highest good. And while our ancestors are definitely invested in us, when I call in ancestral spirits, I'm very specific about only those that have goodwill, because Uncle Bob was a jerk in life.
Right. That's to say, not all your ancestors were great people,
He's probably going to be a jerk in the afterlife too. People's souls don't change that much. We keep coming back and learning lessons for reasons. And you don't have to call up grandma if in life you guys just fought. But of course, ancestors go back thousands of years as well. So there's usually someone in your family line that is interested in working with you and does have your best interest. And one of those reasons is, what is remembered lives. So the more we work with the ancestors and the more we remember them and feed them and send them energy, then the more life force they get. So there is reciprocity there.
There was a kids movie I watched with my children. It like really was like showing pretty much that. It was like Coco or whatever was it? I can't remember what it's called.
I've seen parts of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
You saw like the spirits had to like, it was all in like Mexico and that, I believe. And the spirits had to like, still somebody alive had to still remember you, or you started to fade away. Like if you only had one person left remembering you, you were like bones, your spirit was fading away. And I'm like, that is a scary thought.
It's a common belief. There's a lot of really interesting afterlife beliefs.
Well, we were just talking before the show. We do, Jamie and Rob, my co-hosts here, they do a lot of ITC, or instrumental transcommunication, spirit box. And we do it on the show live, once every other month or so. Often we have callers call in and the spirits talk, but we always talk about how we always get help us. And some say, some people, when they hear that, they'll go, well, here, let me guide you to the light. We don't do that because I think there could be consequences for that. But if there's, we do have this feeling like when we're trying to communicate that the spirits are all trying to get us to, pray for them or do something for them to go to the light. We've had a lot of weird stuff like that come through. It makes you wonder.
Yeah, I'm a multi-level spirit believer. I believe in your classic ghost all the way up to like full-on powerful deities and everything in between. And ancestors and ghosts and ancestors are the same but different. But it's, not all of them. A lot of spirits will ask for help and they just are tricking you.
Well, that's why I say, I don't know. It's like, hey, man, I'd help you, but I don't know who you are, spirit. Who am I helping here? Am I helping Ted Bundy get to the other, to the light? I don't want to do that. I don't know who I'm helping.
Because then, of course, you have that energy as well, which is magical hygiene is another, and spiritual
magical hygiene. That's a good way. We call it like ghost sickness or whatever. Sometimes like, stuff that lingers on you. Cause I'm a paranormal investigator, and I've had investigators get what I call walk-in experience, where they don't remember what happened and their personality changes. And they basically had what we call a walk-in,
Yep.
I'm like I said, I'm not an atheist, I'm Gnostic. I believe in another side and afterlife, and that spirits interact with us. I've seen a lot of crazy things. I've seen a lot of spirits. Have you? I mean, I have to believe you've probably seen your fair share of spirits and ghosts.
Yes.
What was the first time you saw something you were like, that is a spirit or that's a ghost?
I was I think it was in first grade. And I was with my older sister, and she was about 3 years older than me. So I think she was in fourth grade. And back then, it was like pretty normal for you to walk a couple miles home from school on your own, and have a key. So
latchkey kids.
Working. Yep, exactly. I mean, now like CPS would be called, but times have changed.
Oh yes.
But back then we walked home from school and we came in and I remember being in the kitchen, probably getting a snack or something. And the smoke alarm, like the smoke detector, starts going off. And it was really odd. We smelled, we're like, oh, smoke, nothing, of course. So we call mom on the phone. She's at work and we tell her what happens. And she's like, well, do you see a fire? Do you, smell the smoke, anything like that? And we're like, no. And then, of course, it turns off. And she's like, okay, it's probably just malfunctioning. Why don't you go sit on the couch? And I'll see if I can get off work early, come home. But, if there's anything, just run across to the neighbor. And, my best friend was across the street. So that was pretty normal. So we go sit on the couch, and I was in first grade. I wanted my stuffed animal. So I hop up and I run to my room, which is in the hallway. Access is in the hallway that has the smoke detector. And I grab my stuffy and I run back and I plop on the couch next to my sister. And I had been sitting just about enough time to kind of catch my breath, maybe like 30 seconds roughly. And this man, who was very solid, except he kind of faded out towards the ground a little bit. I remember like his feet kind of not being very visible. And he walked through the room.
Oh, wow.
Right in front of the couch, turned away from the couch, walked through the TV and through the wall.
Oh, see, those are the things that scar us. They stay in your mind. You remember it too. Like it's visually scarred in your brain, isn't it?
Forever. And
Yeah.
the crazy thing about it is it wasn't a singular incident. It wasn't, oh my gosh, I just saw this. My sister saw the exact same thing.
And that's what always helps is having somebody else to see it. I had a similar incident with my cousin, but we're going to go to commercial break. So we'll hold it there and we'll get more into that because we love good ghost stories too. And I'm sure you've continued to see spirits throughout your life too. So we can talk about that. All right, guys, we'll be after this, after the short commercial break. First, I got the raw music. I'm off my game. Here we go. That's the right second break commercial music. I don't know my own show stuff. All right, guys, we'll be back with our guest, Annwyn Avalon, author of Water Witchcraft, Magic and Lore from the Celtic Tradition. We'll open up the phone lines when we come back from this commercial break. If you want to call in, I'll give those phone lines out when we get back. All right, guys, we'll be back for this short commercial break.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now, Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the Dreamscape.
Knights of the Road, here's your stallion. The car for freedom. The car for hot excitement. The car for a man who is alone against the elements.
Batsu Thunder.
The pride is back. It's the power of a compact.
Looks small, but it's so big.
Fuel injected.
Inject me.
My Batsu Thunder. On the toll road of life, you have to pay to prove you can. Live the emotion of an individual. The awesome power of nature distilled into one vehicle. Because after you get struck by lightning, there's thunder.
The Batsu Thunder.
Tired of school?
Who was Joan of Arc?
Noah's wife? Like to travel?
Let's go back into history. Let's reach out and touch someone.
Want to meet people in the past?
Put them in the Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden? Excellent! Execute them. Bogus.
Then hitch a ride with George Carlin, Keanu Reeves, and Alex Winter in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure from Orion Pictures.
Hi, Jill. What are you making?
I'm making average noodles for my kids.
What are they like?
They're distinctly average. This one is broccoli flavour.
That is very average. I could barely raise any extreme enthusiasm for those whatsoever.
You should try their other flavours like carrot, plain fish and potato.
Are they quick to prepare?
Compared to other noodles, you mean?
Yes.
They're pretty average, actually.
Well, I might just possibly go and maybe buy some sometime, in a bit perhaps.
Yes, I'm sure your whole family will be mildly interested in average noodles.
Average noodles, they're okay, just nothing special.
Hi, Jill! What are you making? I'm making super noodles. For your kids? Stuff that. For me. What flavour are they? They're magnificent mild curry. Oh, are super! Wait till you try their other flavours, like sudden fried chicken, barbecue beef, and cheese and ham. Wow, Jill, this has changed my life! Now I really appreciate the meaning of the word super as an adjective. Mummy, can we have some? Yes! In fact, let's invite the whole street round for tea! Yeah!
Bachelor's super noodles, not named super for nothing.
The first time was only a warning. Damien, Omen 2. Now showing at the Leicester Square Theatre. Certificate X. Available in paperback from Futura Books.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything is 42.
42?
Yes, I thought it over quite thoroughly. It is, it's 42. It would have been simpler, of course, to have known what the actual question was.
But it was the question. The ultimate question. Of everything.
That's not a question. Only when you know the question will you know what the answer means.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Annwyn Avalon, author of Water Witchcraft, Magic and Lore from the Celtic Tradition. We're talking about all the different ways you can use water in magic, the power of water. Like I said, I've always had a deep fear of drowning in water, and Jaws probably had a lot to do with it, and sharks. When I was a kid, that was the last thing you would see me wanting to do is go in the water. I did get used to it, and I did have fun in water as a kid, and I loved the pool, but like Lake Michigan, like big bodies of water, it scared the living heck out of me as a kid. And maybe Annwyn, like I said, I should get some advice. Maybe there's some magical things I can do. I'd also battle the water in my basement constantly coming to. Maybe there's a magic spell to keep my basement dry. That'd be something to ask. But if you have a question, maybe you want to know a spell that you could do for yourself, especially involving water, you can call in tonight. The phone lines are open now. Only 2 of the lines are open. You can call in at 219-230-4444. That's 219-230-4444, or Skype ID OOJBland OO. That's OOJBLAND OO. That's Skype ID. Call in. Lines are open. Ask our guests a question or tell us about your own story. Have you seen a spirit? We love good ghost stories. Call in tonight, guys. But let's go ahead and get back to our guests. You still there with me, Annwyn?
Yes.
So this spirit you saw, for people, if you're just joining us, is Annwyn Avalon. We're talking about her first encounter. She was a first grader of seeing a man. You said he wasn't totally formed, walk through your living room and through a wall. And now you said your sister saw it. Now, did she see it at the same time as you, or she saw it on a separate time?
No, same time. It was one of those. It happened, and I think we both kind of took a breath, and then we looked at each other and we're like, "Did you see that?" And yeah, it was. She saw it. I saw it. Exact same description. It was definitely one of those moments where I was like, "Oh, there's a lot more to this world."
See, it changes you. It changes us as kids when we see these things. For me, I saw with my cousin, who was only a month younger than me. We were 4 or 5 years old. We saw a green floating head that flew through this room in the middle of the night that we were sleeping in. And I could hear it scream. in my head. I think it was in my head. It's hard to remember. You're 4 or 5 years old. I remember it all starting with crying and moaning, and then when it burst into the room, flying around, it was screaming. My cousin's memory of it years later, he's like, I remember the floating head, the green floating head. He thought it was a dream. He turned white as a sheet when I brought it up to him. But he's like, I remember that. I don't remember it screaming or wailing. Well, I'm Irish on my father's side. He's not so much. And I always wondered if it was like a banshee or something I saw. It was the weirdest thing, but it scars you. You know the paranormal is real then.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible that it was banshee. That's exactly what I was thinking when you were saying that. Yep, I was like, oh, that sounds like a banshee. And so there's a story about a fairy queen named Melusine. And what's really interesting is that she is a fairy queen, and she has a story that was recorded in the 1300s. And a very strange version of it ended up in the Grimm's fairy tale under the obscure story called Herr Peter von Stauffenberger. And one of the things that is supposedly interesting and special about her, besides the fact that she's a fairy woman, is that she married a human and they had offspring. Now, there's 2 different stories about her as well. There's one where she marries Raimondine and has 10 sons, and there's another where she is with Siegfried and she has sons and daughters. And she's an actual historical figure as well, and you can find her descendants in the War of the Roses.
Really?
Yes. Jacquetta of Luxembourg is supposedly descended from Melusine's line, and so is Elizabeth Woodville.
Is this Irish or is this Celtic?
This would be the War of the Roses, so the Tudors.
The Tudors, okay.
Yeah. And then from Melusine's other story, Guy Lucien is a French nobleman who ended up being the king of Jerusalem during the Crusades for about 10 years. And have you ever seen the movie The Kingdom of Heaven with Orlando Bloom?
No, I have not.
Oh, okay. It's about the Crusades. Right. But it's interesting because there's a particular character in there whose name is Guy Lucien. And he's based off of this historical figure, was king of Jerusalem for about 10 years, awful person. But he was also supposedly descended from Melusine's line. And so there is this theory, well, part of the whole thing is that those that have descended from her can hear the call of the banshee.
Really?
Especially when someone in the family is about to die.
See, that's the thing. I knew that. I knew that part about the banshee. No, I don't know. I was 4 or 5 years old, and I wasn't close to my father's side. I don't know if anybody was dying around that time. My father disappeared around that time, but I think he's still alive. So, but I never know. I don't know why I saw what I did and why I heard it. My cousin didn't. And the only thing I could go back is the Irish lore and that. But I didn't know it went back to that. So there's only certain people within that family line.
Well, that's one particular story, particular family line. And Melusine was a Scottish princess, but ended up over in France. And so I'm sure that there are Irish stories about this as well, because she's not the only. The banshee it's not just a singular spirit, it's almost a classification of spirits, like mermaid.
Right.
It wouldn't be one mermaid, but it would be like multiples. And so I bet that there's other connections through other stories as well, and probably other fairy women who married humans.
That's why I love you watch True Blood. We're geeking out tonight. I don't care. In True Blood, that's like the main character. She's descended from fairies, whatever. And so maybe I have some fairy bloodline in me. But you know what it looked like? I always got freaked out afterwards as a kid was the Wicked Witch of the West. It looked like her green face, but glowing. It was like translucent and glowing. And that the Wicked Witch of the West always scared the crap out of me after that as a kid. Still kind of gives me a little creeps.
Yeah, that's interesting though that was green because there's other spirits out there that are described as being this green. Like Ginny Greenteeth is a swamp spirit. Basically like a swamp mermaid, but she's described as being green as well.
You know, that day, the one thing I've thought might be connected to it, so maybe you can help me with this. This is with water. Okay, so that day, I remember this. Me and my cousin went and played in this ditch. Like this ditch of mud and water, okay, and we had a good old time, man. We just we were mudded out, dirty as heck. And my aunt comes out and discovers us, just like, what the heck? Oh my God, you've been playing in this ditch. Like she lost her mind, hosed us down. I didn't know, maybe we disturbed something.
Oh, possibly. It could have been. Was the ditch? Was it like a seasonal thing, or was it kind of a constantly like?
I would say seasonal. Like I'm sure that ditch would be dry good parts of the year.
I mean, anything's possible, really. There's all the way back to the Greek times. They believed that there was a spirit that inhabited every single well.
Right.
And it's that way with lakes as well. So, and I found that swamps have very specific spirits as well, and marshes. So
I saw something else. I got another story maybe you can have some insight on. I saw something else in a swamp when I was a teenager too. That's what I think about. You maybe start thinking about some of these things, and they are connected to water.
Yeah, so water spirits are vast, and you'd asked about keeping your basement dry as well.
Yeah.
I do.
You do have a spell for that? I will. My wife actually is she practices witchcraft. I'm ignorant to it. I learned most of what I know from talking to her and what I've read, but yeah, I'll be like, hey honey, I got this spell for the basement.
But less of a spell and more of appeasing the water spirits.
Okay.
So
there we go. So I pissed them off somehow.
Yes, but it's okay because I've done it before too. So even the best, even the most knowledgeable of us has done it. And some of the students in my water course, as soon as they start getting into it and they are really conscious about things, they start working this magic, and then all of a sudden, I had one student. My roof is raining. The pipes busted in her roof, and her whole house was raining. And another student has had the hot water heater. I've had a well pump go out, and I've had a hot water heater go up in flames.
Oh my God. That's scary.
Yeah.
The fire is the more the fear for you.
Yeah, for me. Yeah.
That is for my wife too, by the way. My wife's fear is she loves the water. She's totally afraid of fire.
A lot of witches have that fire fear. I think it's because many of us were probably burned.
Yeah, that's her theory too.
So an altar or shrine space or any type of offering to the local water spirits, especially you had 2 incidents happen with water. I think
that a lot of incidents with water. You're gonna ask my friends.
Your typical fairy offerings of milk and honey work. Shiny things work. When the well was giving me a problem, I just took a 12 by 12 stepping stone paver, and I mounted it on 2 what are they called? Bricks, just like your typical red brick.
Yeah.
And I put some candles on it, and I set that right next to the pump. And I went out every day and did daily offerings for a couple of weeks.
I would have during this last flooding, because this is the third or fourth. The first time this basement ever flooded, I had water up to my chest. I mean, it was a lot. It was backed up through the drain. That was 10 years ago, whatever more. And then I thought I had the problem solved. And then it comes back a year ago and shut this show down for a month or so. And then I thought I had it handled. Nope. Screwed up on the gutter system. And boom, we got water again. And that's how your show got rescheduled. So I would have been willing to give them honey, milk, whatever they wanted. I was desperate. So I wish I had you then.
Yeah, I would just start there. I would even put one up now. I mean, I honestly would just not even wait till the next thing happens. Be like, okay, we're going to stop the next thing from happening.
I just like to know how I pissed off the water spirits, man. A long time ago, I did something. I don't know what.
it could have been something as simple as walking through the forest and putting your foot somewhere that it shouldn't have been and just being ignorant, because that's a total normal thing to happen.
Hey, I'm human. Give me a break.
Exactly. But then, of course, it can also go the other way, which is, massive pollution, not recycling, chucking your plastic into the ocean.
I don't do that. I don't do
right.
that. I would never do that.
Yeah.
I recycle.
Most of us on the pagan witchy side of things, we're very conscious of that already. So it could just be something as simple as, just did the wrong thing, stepped in the wrong place.
I think I just bought the wrong house is what I did. But,
Well, it sounds like there might be a water spirit that's in the house or near the house that knows that there's magical people living there and is probably trying to get attention.
But boy, they are. If it is, I feel like it is a force. I really do. I could totally buy into that. I really feel like it's something conscious because it's timing, the way it times itself when some water incident happens, like just now, like today. Like I'm waiting for my green screen to like completely fall behind me because it's soaked in water at the bottom. Like it's only going to hang there for so long before it gets too wet. But yeah, that's an air conditioner this time that did that. It's like it's always something. It's always something like be it a refrigerator that suddenly defrosts on its own and leaks everywhere, or a pipe that breaks and leaks water everywhere, or the basement just floods. It's just, I put in a sub pump this time. That was, get the water out. But I will do whatever magic. I'll appease whatever water spirit I pissed off or wants my attention. Fine. You got it. You got my attention. So I was hoping you might have that advice. I could have used it a month or 2 months ago.
Reciprocity with water spirits is just, spirits in general, but I found that with water spirits, it's a really important part of working with them, is that kind of, you help me, I'll help you, but you better be helping me first. Don't be greedy and just ask. Because that's another thing, is kind of being like, water spirit, help me with this. It's like showing up to a stranger's house.
It's like
and
the
being
mafia.
Like, hey.
What are you going to do for me?
Right. And you wouldn't just show up at like some random stranger's house and be like, hey, I need some money. Like, give me some prosperity, you stranger. And so, if you don't, building relationships with spirits to be able to kind of have each other's back is important. I think that you've probably got a spirit that's living there. There may be a well or a spring, or you may be over.
There used to be an old spring here. There used to be, like this property area we found out used to be a spring that ran through here.
Oh, well, there you go.
Just because we're here. So it's probably it's the land.
It's a well spirit or spring. So springs and wells and founts are often interchangeable, but most of the sacred wells and sacred founts are a spring, even if that spring is just a trickle of water. And so you and every spring and well and fount has a spirit that dwells within it. That goes all the way back to the Greek times. And so if there was a well or a spring that was there on the property that's now been shut down, and the water's leaking everywhere, it probably wants to flow again.
So you wonder. It's something. I like I said, I feel like it's a force. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, we talk about spirits, is one of the things, I remember I said we do ITC, instrumental transcommunication. Well, one of the things in the communities that people do, we haven't done a lot on the show, but I became convinced of it when a friend of mine early on in this show, her name's Lisa Marie Hughes. She's a very gifted medium artist, and she does what's called water ITC. And I was very skeptical of it until she did something that I just was blown away from. She goes, okay, I just want you to, she's like, I'm going to do it now. I just want you to focus on your happiest memory. And so she swirls the water around, takes pictures of it. Okay. When she brings back the pictures to me, I see, and I should have had this ready to show. I see almost an outline of my favorite picture of and it is my happiest moment. The first time I got to hold my firstborn son. And it's literally an outline of it in this energy-like looking thing inside the water. It's just light and water swirling around. And you can even see like me holding the baby.
Oh, that's awesome.
But
I've
she
never
gets-
heard of this, but I'm fascinated
I
by
bet.
it.
Let's see. I wondered if you'd heard of it or not. You should really look into it because, man, imagine a witch doing. Rob, Jamie, conclude on this, but imagine a witch doing water ITC. Imagine the power of that. So this is what you do. Okay. Oh, I'm all into this now. Okay. So Annwyn, this is called. There's a lot of different people doing it, and I'm sure there's some fakes. There's some people I've seen out there. I swear, there's just sticking a picture in the water. I swear I can see the outline of the square of the picture, but there's other people I watched them do it live and take the pictures and show you, like what they get, and they get faces. I mean, you get real, I don't think it's pareidolia. I mean, you really do see a ghostly face in these images of people or other things you see. Like I said, she asked it to show my happiest memory. And it also, you know what it also did? It also signed my name in cursive in it too.
Doesn't surprise me.
Right. This is what's so crazy about it. And somebody like you who's so connected, your magic is so connected to the water, man, this is something you should try. And if you do, I want to see the results. But basically,
I'm gonna look into this. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Oh, man. Imagine a witch doing this, because these are people that just discover this, and you're like, and a lot of them have, Lisa is definitely connected to spirit, and I think she has incredible mediumistic abilities. And she's a spirit magnet, probably. But so her stuff comes out incredible. I mean, she blew me away. I was convinced after that there's something to it. I was okay. She got me right there. Go ahead.
Have you ever heard of Dr. Emoto and the way that he took photographs of the different water crystals?
No.
Okay, so there's actual science behind this. And with water magic, I found that it is a good, a tablespoon of science, a good helping of science, and then a hell of a lot of magic and spirit work. So basically, he was a Japanese scientist, and his book came out, I feel like 15 years ago now. But what he did is he went around, first off, he just took water and he started speaking to water. He would have one jar of water and he would say positive things, and another jar and he would say negative things.
It's like they do with plants.
Yes, except what he would do is then extract the water from the particular container, and I believe that he froze it into so that he could actually see the crystalline structure, and put it under a microscope. And he started noticing that positive, higher vibration things had almost perfect snowflake-like crystalline structure.
That's really interesting.
Things like anger and hate, and even some heavy metal music, was a little bit more scrambled.
Satan. It's Satan.
And then he took it even further and started going to sacred sites and comparing those to polluted sites. And he has several books on it. He actually passed away a few years ago now, but there's a ton of information out there. And someone even took this and made a water crystal oracle deck. And it's got the different water crystals on it, and you flip it over and it tells you what it is. And so he has an entire book that details, this water crystal is happy, and this one is love, and this one is all these different things. And so this kind of brought around the water has memory, and so it remembers, and it can definitely absorb energy, which is what Dr. Emoto proved, is that
I mean, that's science. You're right. It's a lot, a little bit, some science here, but the implications are magical.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and if you can imagine then how, if you're a glass of water, your body is a vessel made up of 60 to 80% of water, depending on how dehydrated or hydrated you are. And if you're that glass or vessel and you are always saying negative things to it, then it does actually change your energetic structure through the water. And then same thing with positive things, which is kind of why I think the law of attraction works.
Right.
It's flawed and it's problematic, and you can't just wish yourself $1 million. But
I'd be a millionaire right now if I could.
Exactly. But I do think that there's some basis for it in the fact that they were picking up on the way that you vibrate does kind of change the way that you're looking at things or the way that people look at you. And so if you're feeding yourself with a whole bunch of polluted food and you're polluting yourself with just negative thoughts or, and depression, having depression, that can change everything about your entire water structure that's in your body.
That makes a lot of sense.
And so, like, being a watery person, and many watery people often suffer from depression, one of the things that I like to do to kind of counter that is, first off, just be kind of very conscious of like, oh, okay, kind of in this place. But it's really hard to charge water with positivity when maybe you're a little sluggish. And so you can go back to Dr. Emoto's basic work, and that's writing the word on a piece of paper and taping it to your cup, or putting it underneath and letting it charge and kind of pulling those vibrational energies from the word itself, and then ingesting it, or even taking it further and dropping a piece of amethyst or quartz in the water and letting that charge, and then taking it out so you don't choke.
Don't choke.
And then drinking it. But gem elixirs or crystal waters are, there's a lot of stuff online about them. You can find out. Not all stones are safe to use. Little disclaimer.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some that might have something they release into the water you might not want to drink.
Yeah, and some are
Do your
toxic.
research, people.
Yeah, exactly. But kind of going back to what you had been talking about before, I feel like there's some connection that the water, which again, I think that with what you were talking about with kind of the image that you were seeing in the water, I think it's partially, we can see the science behind it, but at the same time, water has spirit. It has intelligent life force. And so perhaps it was doing exactly what you think it is. It's pulling that energy from you and pushing it to the surface. Scrying in water has been something that's been done for thousands and
Somebody
thousands.
posted that just in the chat room about scrying. I'm like, yeah, I wanted to get to that too. Because I mean, like Nostradamus, they say he looked into a black mirror or water.
Mm-hmm. Mother Shipton, actually predates Nostradamus by maybe 30 years. So she came before, and you can find her prophecies online. She was a notorious prophetess and witch in 1400. But she was born in a cave on the River Nid, where there's a petrifying well and a wishing well, which means that there was a ton of water and magical waters around her. And it's almost like you can't look at that and say, oh, well, she was clearly just a fire scryer,
Right.
with like, she was born in this cave where this water was very magical water. People still visit. It's the oldest tourist destination in the UK. But having that there, of course she scried in that wishing well. I'm convinced, just based off of everything that I've researched, everything that I've practiced, that she absolutely was pulling her prophecies from the water.
We'll get more into that, but we do have somebody who's been waiting on hold. I want to bring him on. Zach, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good, brother. How you doing?
Thanks for holding on there. You always got great questions, so go ahead and shoot.
All right. I actually have 3 questions tonight.
Let's go for it.
Annwyn, it's very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
My first question is based on your experience of dealing with different water spirits on different ways to control the flow of water, like dams and aqueducts.
Okay. You cut out a little bit, so let me repeat that just to make sure I've got it. But you're asking about in conjunction with like water spirits controlling like the actual dams and aqueducts that are already in place. Is that what the question is?
Well, what do they think really of man-made ways really to control the water, like dams, for example?
Okay. Excellent. Okay, so this is not the first time I've had that particular question. So I think they hate them. I do, and there's a few incidents of dams breaking and just completely unleashing their wrath upon the village that's below. And so I think that they disrupt the flow, and I don't think that spirits are very happy about them. They think it's just more man-made crap that's in the way. Ugh.
I don't know what that sound was, but
Okay. Okay, cool. My second question is for these water spirits. Are these spirits that once had a physical body or not? And if they're not, where did they originate from?
Oh, okay, that's a good one. So, originate from, we'll go there. I believe that they belong to this planet and that they were here long before us and that they'll be here long after. I also think that there's another dimension that they dwell in that we are only able to perceive at perhaps liminal times, or if they want us to perceive them. There's a lot of mythologies and stories about mermaids falling from the heavens into the waters. And so it is quite possible that there's otherworldly origins to some of them as well. But even if they had those otherworldly origins, I think that they still predate humanity. Now, human form is interesting. So, okay. They can absolutely appear in human-like form. Sometimes they will appear more like the classic lady in white or that kind of
Lady in the
spectral
Lake.
ghost. Yep, Lady of the Lake. There's many stories across cultures that talk about these women seen near water, often wearing like light blue or white, and having a very like transparentness about them. But then we have sailors who have visibly seen mermaids. And so it's interesting because I think that they have the ability to be in both. And of course we have stories like with Melusine that I was talking about earlier, where she is a fairy woman who's connected with sacred founts, but she also has a mermaid tale every Saturday. Part of her story is that she is cursed to have this mermaid's tail, and she has offspring. So they have this multi-dimensional ability. Now, we have these more modern stories of mermaids wanting their legs, the Little Mermaid story. I chuckle about this so much because we have this modern phenomena right now where we've got these really cool mermaid tails and plastic shell tops and professional mermaids and all sorts of stuff. And it's really beautiful and it's really nice to watch. It's performance art.
Self-identified mermaids, yeah.
Yes.
Two.
And so what happened with that is it started kind of birthing these how to be a mermaid or awaken your mermaid self, or you're a mermaid, just, you just have to find her. And I start laughing at these because no, you can't be a mermaid. Just like you can't be an angel. You can't be a ghost. I mean, you could be, but you can't in this particular
You're gonna get some self-identified mermaids writing you some angry emails now.
Well, here's the thing. We have a lot of stories about these mermaids, and we have this modern folklore about this mermaid who wants to have legs, and all she wants to do is walk upon the shore.
And then you have people that want to be mermaids.
So you've got someone that's never worked with magic or spirits before taking a class on how to be a mermaid or to awaken their mermaid self. And then we have these mermaid spirits who are like, hey, maybe I want some legs.
Ooh.
So I think it's a really good way of opening yourself up to ritual possession, or not ritual possession, but just possession.
I never even thought of that. I never even thought of that. Is a really good point, Annwyn, that they could be opening themselves up to something on a spiritual level. That's a really interesting thought.
Yep. I mean, and if you don't mind having a mermaid living in your body, that's fine.
Well, a self-identified mermaid might not, but I don't know if it's a good thing. Zach, did you have you had another question?
Yep, I just have one more question. Annwyn, I just wanted to know, are there different water spirits for like natural bodies of water versus man-made bodies of water? I'm from Arizona as well. Are there like different water spirits for like the Colorado River versus like Tempe Town Lake?
Yes. So Tempe Town Lake is interesting because it's a man-made lake, and it's quite dirty. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't have spirits, because we have examples from Celtic folklore of like Ginny Greenteeth, who is a dirty, swampy spirit. And we also have tons and tons of marsh spirits out there as well that have been documented in folklore. But one of the things that I've found, and this is through talking to other practitioners and on a modern experience level, is that in many of my classes, I talk to students, or after I do a lecture, workshop, I talk to students, and everybody's always got a really cool story to share. And something that I noticed was that man-made lakes did or could be other things like drainage collection and stuff like that. But these man-made bodies do, not always, but they often do have spirits. And we see, water in a well can be a portal. Water as a glassy surface, like a mirror, can be a portal. And so I do think that even though they're man-made, they start collecting energy. And so one thing that I found around these man-made places, especially the ones that are very dirty or in industrial areas, there's reports of kelpie or other vicious water horse. And one of the things that happen in the stories with kelpies is, so not only are people seeing them, but there's bodies that are being found in these places.
Like real bodies, people dead?
Real bodies, like dead bodies.
Right.
Yeah. So, most of the time it's an unsolved murder, or someone goes missing around that area. And that is something that kelpies, or malicious water horses, are known for, is taking bodies. There's
they try to draw people into the water.
Yes, they do. Exactly. And so in the case of that, it seems to be more like malevolent spirits. But now if you go to just different bodies of water, natural bodies, your springs, founts, wells, anything that comes from that natural aquifer is going to have a different type of classification of water spirit, where your swamp is going to have a particular kind and your river is going to have a particular kind. And we see different spirits in different cultures, but the river spirits throughout different cultures tend to have a lot of the same characteristics. Same thing with mermaids. They're universal. And mermaids are not just connected to the ocean. Mermaids have been known to be both in the ocean and in freshwater.
Really?
There's a story about an old sea captain that captured a mermaid when he was, obviously out to sea, and brought her back to his estate and placed her in the pond. And somehow she was trapped there. And so after he died, she would just lure young men in and drown them. Which is kind of a normal thing for mermaids. There's either really benevolent stories or really aggressive stories. But to give some mermaids some positive light here, you've got the old man of Curry in The Mermaid, and she's a very classic ocean mermaid, and she does help him. So they're not always evil and bad. And then we also see groups of 3s and 9s, especially in conjunction with the Norse sea spirits and throughout the Celtic and Gaul world, we see a lot of these nines, three water spirits or 9 water spirits over and over and over again. So there's similarities that
Something
you can find.
numerological to it. Well, thank you,
Yeah.
Zach, for calling in, bud.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, not a problem at all, brother. Thank you so much, Annwyn, for answering my questions.
Thank you for asking. They were great questions.
He always does. Thank you, Zach. You guys can call in tonight, 219-230-4444 or Skype ID JBland00. Call in. Zach, don't be discouraged because Zach always has such great questions. You just want to talk. Call in. Zach does. He's got a list of questions. He should be a host. He's got good questions. You talk about that too. It makes me think with what happened in my area in Lake Michigan is just recently there's been a lot right before this news got announced that they, and who knows how long ago it happened. They're not even being specific when the leak really happened. But there's been a lot of like people that have drowned or almost drowned in the lake. There's a guy that went missing on his kayak. So it seems like the Lake Michigan's a bit angry at us.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, what's happening is good people, I feel like, are perhaps getting punished for corporations. I don't really feel that the nature spirits are seeing a difference between us and them. And I think it's up to us to really make a difference and start saying like, hey, no, we're not the evil ones. We're going to help.
Well, you have to wonder, what are the repercussions of the spirits in Lake Michigan when cyanide's dropped into the lake? There's got to be some pissed off water spirits at that. And, what are the repercussions? And like I said, right before this got announced, there were a number of almost drownings. I think there was another drowning. So, you got to wonder, is the lake angry? Because, it should be. It really should be, when they do that. And where we're at the lake too, it's already kind of like I won't go swimming in it because it's the bottom of the lake. So like all the crap from every industrial thing happening around the lake ends up there.
I'm gonna go swimming in any lake though.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't. I probably wouldn't. I did when I was a kid. I did. There was a lake in Minnesota I used to go up to, and I got comfortable with my 2 cousins. It's either that or sit and watch them play in the water. So I would go in and snorkel, but they'd go out in the deep, and if my feet if I couldn't touch the bottom, I wasn't going any further. That was my childhood. I was scared of the water, man. I thought Jaws was in the YMCA swimming pool. That's Jaws had a lot to do with it too.
Sharks are not nearly as scary as people. Jaws and Sharknado have kind of.
My kids are fascinated. I have a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, soon to be 8, and they are fascinated by sharks. But I shared my childhood trauma with my son because he was so fascinated with sharks. He saw Jaws was on TV, coming on TV. They're like, Jaws next. This was when we still watched cable TV. And he's like, I want to watch it. I want to watch it. And we just had gone to see sharks at the, what's the place in Chicago? They're little, I can't think of it. But we just went and saw a bunch of sharks and all that. And he got a stuffed shark. And I'm like, dude, you're not watching the movie. Screamed and cried. I'm watching the shark movie. I want to watch it. I'm like, it's a grown-up movie. And fine. Here, go ahead, watch it. And the first scene's like the worst scene in all the Jaws movies. Like the most scariest scene is the girl in the middle of the night, swimming out in the water with a drunk boyfriend passed out on the beach. And the shark pulls her down, swims around. She screams, it's the worst. My son goes running in his bedroom and grabs his stuffed shark and throws it. He's like, I hate sharks. I'm like, oh no, I scarred my child just like I did. But actually, he's good. He's good. He was just in a kayak the other day, and he still loves sharks. They've watched Sharknado, and they've watched all Megalodon. They love sharks.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen the Meg yet, but I probably will end up watching it.
Megalodon?
Yeah, I have been obsessed with Megalodon.
Hey, this is interesting. You wonder, if Megalodon's out there, somebody is interested in the water. I have to agree. Even me, who fears the water, I'm totally interested in the idea that Jaws is one of my favorite movies. So things that traumatize me, I love at the same time. I'm screwed up like that, I guess.
It's quite possible that, I mean, we've explored more of the surface of the planet than we have the oceans, and who knows what's down deep. I mean, look at the anglerfish. That thing is scary. And it's not little. The anglerfish is kind of a big fish. Like when you're in like school and you're like learning about the anglerfish, it's like this tiny little thing on your page and you're thinking that it's the size of like a basketball, and it's not.
I don't want to encounter any fish. If a little fish bumped up me in the water, I'd scream like a little girl. Yeah. What is that, Rob? Rob's showing was a big shark tooth. See, Rob's in St. Augustine, Florida, so he's all water, man. He's our pirate.
St. Augustine's nice. I've been there many times.
But yeah, like I have this weird fascination with the water and ships and sharks since I was a little kid, but a tremendous fear of it all at the same time. It's a weird relationship I have, like I said, with water and the ocean. And I've been to the ocean and I didn't go in it. I just stared at it and like, wow, that's beautiful. I'm not touching it.
The Pacific Ocean is a little bit like that for me. It's a bit too dark and too cold, and I'm just kind of like, I love you. I'm gonna love you from right here. But the Atlantic can't even keep me out of it.
Yeah,
even if it was raining, I couldn't handle it. I'd be in it. It's warm. I was there actually for the first time in like 8 years, maybe, last month. And I decided to go to the beach at sunrise, and I was just going to walk. Yeah, right. An hour in, and I was like, well, I didn't bring my bathing suit, but these yoga clothes will be just fine. I guess I could walk for another hour and dry off. So I was in the water with my full clothes on.
My son tells me I'm a party pooper because I won't go to the beach with them, and I didn't go with them kayaking or whatever because I'm like, dude, I can't watch you in the water because I'm a worrywart parent. I just can't even handle watching my kids like swim in the lake or anything like that. I can't do it.
I've never really been afraid of sharks. And when I was 12, I was swimming in the ocean, and I was with my aunt, who's only about 6 years older than me. And I was with her, and it was both of us. And I remember that she was, teenager, and she was checking out all the surfers and just was, really interested in all these surfers. And we're just in the water hanging out, and like my mom is like jumping like a crazy person on the shore, and then like other people start joining her, and so we're like, oh, okay. So we were like, maybe we should go in, like maybe something's the matter. So we did. We went in, and she's like, that surfer that just went by you, he got bit by a shark.
Oh my god.
Like,
so this is like the scene right out of Jaws.
Right. And we're like, oh, okay. And I wasn't afraid at all. I was just like, they weren't going to bite me.
I would have lost my effing mind as a kid.
Yep.
When I was a kid, I swear to God, I was so freaked out about it. My mom I was trying to like get out in the water, and I remember getting up so high. My mom's like, don't go out too far. Don't go out too far. And I'm like tempting it. And I swear to God, I saw the shark fin go through the water. This is a lake. I think it was Lake Michigan. There's no sharks there, but I saw something. That was it. I was, woo. I was just when I was getting brave. I swear to God, I've seen sharks in the water, I just something about it. I've been fascinated. Like the one of the reasons I fell in the movie, love of the movie Jaws, is the one scene with Quinn, and he talks about the Indianapolis, and he's like, see the eyes roll over. I always read that up.
I never know.
Yeah, and that story as a little kid. My kids watched that scene too, and it probably scarred them. I don't know, but they loved it. But something about that real life incident of these men being in the water and being eaten alive by sharks stuck with me all my childhood after watching that movie. It fascinated me, scared me, but I've always been fascinated with sharks because of that.
And the megalodon is interesting because for the most part, we do think that it's extinct, though there could still be some.
A lot of ocean.
There's a lot of ocean, yes. But we know for a fact that a good portion of them were extinct. So they start to fall into the ancestral category. And so we like to think of ancestors as just human or humans and that have passed on, but animals.
That's a good point.
There can be animal ancestors. And so I have absolutely called up the spirit of Megalodon.
Uh-oh. That's the new Netflix movie, the Ghost Megalodon. Dude,
Oh my God.
you better get a copyright on that. Start writing the screenplay right now. You just made $1 million on Netflix.
Probably someone would buy it. Oh my
My God, they would. It would be like totally. Netflix is waiting.
Maybe I will.
This is the Megalodon Ghost. Oh my God, I could write the script for you. We're going partners on this, man. Come on.
Some witch
We're
has
thinking it up.
this megalodon tooth that this witch finds on the shore, and
Yeah,
then she,
see, we got it right there.
And summons all these ghost megalodons through her circle, and the next thing you know, they're tearing up Chicago.
And then the sequel's Ghost Megalodon Tornado.
Right. Oh my gosh.
But that's an interesting thought, though, Annwyn, because I've said that about Bigfoot. These things people see, but we can't find a body that they could be. We're seeing a time slip, or we're seeing the spirit of Gigantopithecus. That could be for Megalodon too.
Yeah, and time slips are interesting. There is a witch that I love her work. I read a lot of it. Her name's Gemma Gary, and she wrote a book called The Devil's Dozen, and it's like 13 craft rights for the old ones. It's the old gods, and it's really interesting because one of the things, gosh, I hope it's that book. I think it's that book that I got it from. One of the things that she talked about was meeting like the man in black or the fairy king or whatever spirit, right?
The Man in Black is the fairy king?
Could be.
Okay, we get to that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, but perhaps no. They can often be. Some people think that they're the same. Some people don't. So it's one of those like yes, no, depends on who you are. But one of the things she writes about that is once you've made that decision to contact said spirit and work with said spirit, it doesn't matter where in your timeline you decide that you're going to do that. But once the decision's made and it's been like worked, the spirit will appear to you, but it may be before
you asked for it.
Exactly, because time in the other world doesn't work the same. And there's weird stuff with time bending. And we know for a fact as well that in like all the Celtic stories of the other world, people would get whisked away into the fairy realms for 7 years. It had only been a night, but they come back 7 years later. And wasn't it Rip Van Winkle? That particular story is 70 years, which is probably connected to an older fairy story or has fairy origins or spirit origins of some sort, because that's 70 instead of just the regular 7 years.
Right. More dramatic. It was 70 years, how the story
Right.
goes.
And it could have been because perhaps he stayed 7 days in the other world and then it was 70 years
here. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's lots of stories about that where someone gets taken away and then or they stepped through, or Alice in Wonderland.
Right. No, I've always been a big fascination of mine, Annwyn, is time slips. One of the things you mentioned in the book, you mentioned about the different forms of waters, and you mentioned mist and as being a portal gateway. When I was a kid, I was always fascinated with the fog and mist, and I always felt like somebody's going to step in from another world, from that, or we could step into another world if you just went into that fog,
Well, and we have this like parting the mist comes from this kind of Apollonian thought process where they would part the mist in order to go into the other world. But we see it in so many movies and pop culture references because it's ingrained in our subconscious that this foggy, misty thing is what happens before the werewolf or the witch or the spirit or the
something
ghost
from
or the
another
headless
world.
horseman, or exactly, comes through. So
you wonder again, that involves water, the mist, if that's a portal, or people. I remember stories, fictional stories. There was many. There was a video game where you get to another dimension by jumping into this pond or lake, and you dive down, and then you come back up, and you're in another world. Many stories like that.
And that's actually, I didn't know that was a video game thing, but something really similar to that is in my book where a well is used as a portal. and this water spirit comes and kind of takes you gently down. They're like a guardian spirit. They take you gently down, and you kind of lose all sight. Like you can't see the light above or below or anywhere. It just becomes complete darkness. And then after a while, you look back up and you're headed towards the light again, but it's in the other realm. It's kind of like that Pirates of the Caribbean where they rock the ship, the down is up at that liminal hour in time.
Yeah, it's exactly
Right.
what I was thinking of, which is the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. For my kids are a big series of movies they've rewatched like 100 billion times now.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure my son has them memorized.
Oh yeah. Yeah, sharks, pirates. They play this game called Sea of Thieves, where you're a pirate on this ship. It's very cartoonish like, but there's a big megalodon shark in it. You would love it. And you get your own pirate boat. You got to sail it and everything. So they're totally into all that. Me, I love it too. I've been fascinated with pirates and all that stuff. So again, I swear there's something in my past life that I was totally involved with the sea and the ocean, and then I got killed in some horrible way with it, and I'm like paranoid of it. But
I wonder if there wasn't a pirate type ship that went down. You know, there's so many of them that did.
Yeah.
It's
Like I
possible.
said, I had a psychic on the show, Lori Johnson from Ghost of Shepherdstown. She told me, she said you were on a ship that got lost in the Bermuda Triangle. There's a picture of you out there from this past life. I've looked for it. I don't know. Somebody finds. I wouldn't know if it was me in a picture or not. I don't know, but it made sense. All right, we're gonna go to our last commercial break. When we come back, the phone lines will be open 219-230-4444. Skype ID OOJBland00. Call in. Tell us about your experience with water magic, or have you seen spirits connected to water, or you want a spell to help you. Annwyn's your woman tonight to talk to. All right, guys, we'll be back at this short commercial break.
Intercepted transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated. I will hear it.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're going to go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college. I've got a family to support and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
Of the second kind, physical evidence of a UFO. Close encounters of the third kind, contact. From Steven Spielberg, the director of Jaws, comes one of the most ambitious and unusual films ever made. And what you will see has never been seen before. It's a cosmic mystery crossing what many scientists believe will be the next threshold of human experience. It's called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It begins in an Indiana town and leads to one inescapable conclusion. We are not alone. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Certificate A, now showing at the Odeon Leicester Square.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Phantasm, the film that puts the fun in funeral. And as for a fiendish story, it does have a buried plot. Come prepared to scream, because if this one doesn't scare you, you're already dead. Phantasm from Avco Embassy Pictures. Rated R, under 17, not admitted without parent or guardian.
Oh, midnight preview tonight, UA Westwood Theater.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDiv.net.
Heat 'em up. Do, re. He gone.
Tonight, we've been talking to Annwyn Avalon, author of Water Witchcraft, Magic and Lore from the Celtic Tradition. We got into a lot of stuff. It's Paranormal Soup. We go down a lot of different rabbit holes tonight, even with the Water Witch. I had to get some of my own personal advice tonight about what to do. It does feel like a magical force is trying to put water in my basement in some way, some shape or form. So maybe I need some magical advice to help me with it. My wife wanted to watch tonight, but she has to be up early. She'll watch it later because she's practiced witchcraft. So I'm going to have to say, hey, why haven't you done something magical to stop the water? So honey, if you rewatch this, listen, I need your help. Let's work that witchcraft. She keeps the ghosts out of the house. We need to keep the water out of the house. Tonight, you can call in if you need some help, magical help, and would be your woman to talk to. Phone lines are open, 219-230-4444 or Skype ID OOJBland00. Call in, ask a question, tell us about your paranormal experience, especially if it has anything to do with water. I'd love to hear it. But go ahead and call in, but let's get back to our guest. Thank you for still hanging in there, Annwyn. How are we doing?
Good. Yeah.
I know it's getting late, but actually not as late for you, your time zone, but for me it does. But time goes by fast doing the show. We're already in the last half hour. And again, people, you can call in 219-230-4444, Skype ID OOJBland00. Talking about all this and the power of it, we were trying to talk about there's different kinds of magical water. I saw in your book, like one of the ones I saw, it seems kind of wicked or dark, is like black water.
Yeah. So originally black water would have been used as a term to describe water that came from a well or spring probably a well, that perhaps was poisonous, because that's a thing, can happen. Maybe it had a sulfurous smell. There's 2 accounts written in folklore and historical accounts that I found from maybe like the 1800s, where one of them was called a black well because if you put a coin in the water, it would turn it black. And the other one because it actually was like a dark black color. And then obviously that's not water that you should really want be working with in a modern day context, because who knows what it's got in it.
I wouldn't be drinking any black water.
Right now, but the cool thing about it is there's a company out there that's called BLK, and they create an alkaline infused water, and when they put all the minerals into the water, it turns it black. And you can get it at your usual like liquor store that sells the big liquor stores that have a lot of like different like wine, what is it, Wine and More or Bevmo or those type
Spirits.
of places. Yeah, like stuff like that. And so it's called BLK. You could buy it, and I have worked with it for scrying.
That's what I
and
was wondering. We're scrying.
Yeah, it's really great for scrying. And you could, there's so many different ways to scry water. I mean, you could scry just the beads on the moisture beads on the outside of a glass, just your regular old water in a silver bowl. You can do it with candlelight. You could do the black water. And then if you wanted to take it even further, there's old techniques where lead was dropped into water, like liquid lead. And then the way
Definitely
that,
don't drink.
Right. I actually don't even do this.
Yeah.
But I've got modifications for modern. So they would take this like liquid lead and pour it into the water, and that whatever shape that came into was kind of like the divination. But obviously you don't want to do that. You don't want to be messing with lead.
No.
You don't really want to do any of that. But there are two modifications that I found that work really well. And one of them is wax. And so if you have like your spell candle or your working candle on your altar, you could just take that and let it burn for a little bit. So it has a nice amount of like liquid wax at the top. And then you can drop that in after you've asked your question or you've been scrying for a while and see if that brings forth any visions or messages. And then specifically when using BLK water, but it works well with clear as well. So I'll give both. So the black water, if you take a silver art ink or gold, like a metallic gold or silver ink that you would find at the art store, and a lot of times they have droppers, and then you can drop the drops of ink into the black water and see if anything comes of that. And then if you don't have the BLK water, I found that the dark blue and the black inks work really well in clear water. And I like to use like a silver bowl for that so that it really has a good kind of reflective
I really want you to get into some water ITC. I really do, because you could really up the game on it. I have somebody in our chat. I got the question posted up here on the screen. Sarah from the YouTube chat, and this is something I kind of wanted to get into too. Is question for the speaker, please, and only if this question can be taken. Has she ever had an experience with a negative entity, and what was her scariest experience?
Ooh. So let's see. I don't know if it's scary because I've never been one to really be afraid of spirits, but I have had some interesting interactions with some of my students and some of their accounts. But so a little bit of both here. So I had a student for a little while that was working with the goddess Freya, and she came to me one day and she's like, okay, so I've been working with Freya for a couple weeks now. And she was a new student. So this was, something that she was just starting to learn and get into. And
could be where it gets dangerous for somebody though, too.
Right. Well, and she thought like, this is a good, like safe spirit. It's Freya, the goddess. Right. Mm-hmm. But not all goddesses are even benevolent. So even if you're talking to them, which is the interesting part. So she came to me and she's like, okay, so I've been working, and then all of a sudden, like one thing happened and it just was really weird, like so off. I didn't feel like it was right. And the things that I was getting in my meditation that Freya was asking me to do just felt wrong. And I was like, oh, okay, so how did you establish your original relationship? And she's like, oh, well, I was just in meditation and started talking to her. And I was like, oh, okay, that's great. Did you ask her if she was Freya?
Right. Good question.
And she said, well, I think so, but I really don't know. And I said, well, one of the things that one of my teachers had taught me many years ago is that spirits cannot lie to you, or they have to tell you their name after like the third time that they've been asked, which is interesting because that number 3 is always in magic, and so it seems like it'd be a good
saying
rule.
Beetlejuice 3 times.
Bloody Mary, right? That one as well. So she went back, and I told her this time set up a good salt circle and get your protection going, and then go ahead and summon the spirit, call it up again, and talk to it. And this time ask, not only are you really Freya, but do you have my highest good? And like, do you have my highest good as part of your intent?
Right.
And the spirit lied the first 2 times. And on the third got angry and disappeared. And it was not Freya, because before it disappeared, it shapeshifted into its real form and off it went. And so that's interesting. I can't promise that they'll always do that on 3 though. So it's
a word of caution. You don't know what the forces you're dealing with. You don't know who you're talking to.
Correct. Now, another one that was an interesting experience that was a little like, for me was I had just performed an initiation ritual. So I'm going to be a tiny bit vague about things. But one of the things that I do in the particular ritual as the high priestess is I bring in the spirits. And it's not unlike them to perhaps possess my body. An example, in the Charge of the Goddess, or Drawing Down the Moon, which is a very kind of traditional Wiccan witchcraft practice, you actually recite this poem while your hands are raised up to the moon, and then the priest or practitioner, or the priestess, if she's really good at it, will then draw down that power of the moon. But it's also kind of bringing the goddess into your body for a time, almost like a very light, not a full like possession. So it's something that happens a lot, and then we release them, and it's no problem. But this particular time, it seems that this one particular spirit just didn't want to leave. And we had finished everything, and I was great, and I was really happy, and I was kind of like really excited about what was happening. And we start cleaning up, and everybody starts looking at me, and they're like, are you drunk? And I was like, no, I haven't had alcohol in weeks. And then I was like, oh, I need to go take care of some stuff. And so I went and had a little talk with that particular spirit who I work with regularly, and sent it back to its particular realm with a good chuckle of, nice try. I hope you enjoyed the legs while you had them.
But isn't it a danger? That's the part I would be uncomfortable with if I wanted to get into practicing magic, is the indwelling part. The part where you do summon a spirit into yourself. That just seems like a bad idea.
And it is for the most part. Most people should not do it.
Yeah.
I only do it with very specific ones that I have dedicated my path to, and that I have specific spirit bonds with. It's definitely not one of those like, hey, I'm open, who wants to ride?
We had a guy that was like encouraging that. We always talk about this video we played years ago. This guy like talking about indwelling, it can be a good thing, blah 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 blah, and like, yeah, not the way you're making it sound, man.
No, and see, there's times for it, and there's appropriate times for it, but there can be very dangerous things that happen. I've heard of things where there have been a spirit that's inhabited a body and attacked another coven member.
Ooh.
And then, unfortunately, what happened is, then who do you hold responsible?
Which is getting stitches. It's not good.
The vessel, who was probably not awake for any of it and probably feels awful.
Yeah.
Or the spirit. And so thankfully that was nowhere near any of my practices or traditions or circles. But that's a good example of, something that can go wrong. It's practiced quite a bit in different religions across the planet. In a lot of the Middle Eastern mystic traditions, the folk traditions, the jinn are the spirits, the fire spirits or the genie. And they have entire dances that can go on for days because they do believe that things like depression and mental illness and sadness are an actual jinn possessing your body. And so they have these big rituals where people bring drums and they go into trance and they trance out and they dance until the point of collapse. And then the spirit becomes appeased.
It's like
and sometimes,
spiritual raves.
Yeah, and sometimes the spirit wants something like a new car, you know, which is also interesting. So you kind of have to appease the spirit. And then all the way down in South America with practices surrounding Umbanda, which is, I've had the pleasure of being able to observe and partake in one of these rituals. But the mediums, there was about 6 mediums, 3 on each side, and the priestess, and they all dance and they twirl just like your whirling dervish would. And they bring the priestess brings the spirit in, and then it is in all 6 mediums at the same time. And the practitioners come up and they talk and they get the messages, and each of the mediums has an attendant. And the attendant writes all the notes of everything that the medium is saying,
right?
Because they don't remember anything.
Yeah, and that seems to be common with people who channel that too, is they don't remember what they said. You know, kind of like Edgar Casey, you know, would channel.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder. I was wondering too. She's talking about the negative energies. Something that I picked up on before the last commercial break was when you talked about the fairy realm and the man in black, because I had a shadow person experience that changed my life pretty much when I was 17, 18 years old. And man in black, it just makes me think of the shadow person experience. Well, where it made me think about the bodies of water. I picked it up at these train tracks, the crossroads of train tracks, actually.
That's pretty typical.
Yeah, and there was a body of water next to it. And one of the things that was kind of freaky the night that I really got this thing attached to me was this body of water had this carcass of a deer in it off to the side of it in this like swampy water. That was like our first warning sign that we shouldn't have been out there. So there was a body of water there too. And I had to think about that with the shadow person.
That's really interesting. So the man in black has appeared he's cross-cultural, and he appears multiple times. And that's why I said earlier that, yes, he's a fairy king, but no, maybe not. Because he's not specific to one culture.
Right.
But one of the things that Margaret Murray, an anthropologist from about the 1800s, but a lot of her work was debunked. But many people still believe that, it was people of the time discrediting her. You either have people that are just like, it was all fraudulent, or like staunch Murrayites.
Right.
But she wrote the book called The God of the Witches, and this is basically about the horned god or the goat-foot god or the man in black, and he's the magister, and so he's often associated with covens and creating the witch, or being responsible in this particular anthropologist's view of things. But within my own practice, there's in Glastonbury, there's the White Spring, which is this sacred spring that is an old well house that's been converted into a temple. And this is dedicated to Gwen ap Nudd, which is the fairy king. And one of the interesting things about him is he's described as having a blackened face. And so he's also often seen with horns like a stag. And so some of these having this darker aspect, having horns or just in a black suit.
Mine was a hat man, that they call the hat man. Well, at times it was just a regular shadow figure, but the one time when it walked up to me, it had like, I say a hat, or its head was really long.
Oh, okay. So then this is in the swamp. This was in the south.
This is in Michigan City, Indiana, the north, actually. And there was like these train tracks that went they had there was like right next to where this bridge is and it drops, there's actually a little inlet that I think was probably man-made just to drain water off, but like a little pond, a very small one. And it was really gross. And there was, like I said, a rotted, ripped apart deer probably hit by that train off in it. That, like I said, that just gave the bad vibes to start that night. But down below it, there's another set of tracks. The hill drops, and about 100 feet down or more, there's another set of tracks where it goes under this bridge. So there's these cross tracks.
So bridges themselves can be liminal spaces. It's an old Celtic belief that evil spirits couldn't cross water, and so, of course, that's a little contradictory to what we're about to talk about, but these bridges would also then kind of act as this liminal space.
Yeah.
But then to have these crossroads, so you've got liminal space, and then if it was a liminal hour, then, I mean, absolutely, it'd be really easy to kind of have that overlap with the other world. But, that song, The Devil Went Down to Georgia.
Yeah.
Right. That to me is just a classic example of that kind of man in black meeting at the crossroads, giving a magical instrument or some sort of magical tool plus a bargain. These are things that go all the way back into the fairy lore, meeting the fairy queen at the crossroads, where she then takes you into the other realm and then perhaps bestows the gift of second sight or the ability to never lie, which could be a curse. So
it felt like a curse. This thing was like a curse.
Well, and then there's also just dark spirits that dwell within the land. I mean, everything has that positive and negative charge. So for every benevolent spirit, we have the equal and opposite.
It makes sense.
That it is about that above and below, and that yin and yang duality, negative, positive.
Well, it makes me wonder, because I think about some of these paranormal instances, like the shadow person. There, a lot of people died there. I didn't know any of that when I went out there, and it's a long story. But in short, a number of people died out there. It was bad mojo. There was another time I saw. I was at this boogie swamp out here. There's a swamp in the middle of the night, and people see weird lights out there and stuff. And we went out there one night to check it out. And I swear to God, lo and behold, there's like these wooden paths, and we're walking out to go out to the swamp, and you can see just the moonlight shining down in this clear swamp. And just right at the shore of it, this white misty figure started to form. And then it was like glowing white, and just started and you could almost see legs in the glow, like it walked. And it started walking towards us. So I stood there and was transfixed. I turned around. My friends were gone. They took off. And then I'm like, I'm running now too, because I'm alone.
It's a pretty classic description of a water spirit. That's where we get the lady in white, or these white spectral figures, but we see them over and over and over and over and over again. The shoreline where the water, exactly that point where the water meets the sand.
That's where what was a swamp. This was like Boogie Swamp is what it's called.
Okay. Or the bank, or
the bank,
that
I guess.
Point between water and earth. That line is also a liminal point. It's another crossroads or an in-between.
It seemed to form right there where the water kind of got into the more what do you want to call them? Lily pads and stuff came up in that area, and that's where it started to form, right where the walkway ended.
Yeah, it's probably just a liminal space, and your classic marsh or there's so many well spirits and even sea spirits that are described as beautiful women with long golden hair in white dresses, or beautiful women with red eyes and fangs in white dresses. We get that a lot over and over again. And they don't have to be these cool, historical, folkloric, accounts, because you have, like in Glastonbury at the Chalice Well Gardens, we have the Lady of Avalon, which there's nothing written in, some old text about her, but multiple people see her in this location, and they all describe her pretty much the same, as full of light and kind of very spectral. And
this was very spectral. What I saw was definitely full of light. It would turn to a mist and it was glowing. And I don't know, my friend said they saw the mist form into a human figure and they left. They ran. I saw it turn and start to grow bright. And I swear I turned around and looked one time as I was running and it was following us. It was one of those many crazy things of my weird experiences. Oh,
I would probably just walk towards it, but
if I wasn't alone, my friends hadn't ditched me, I might have, because I stood for a second and was like, what? And I turned to go like, were you guys seeing it? And they're already gone. Like, so like, okay, I'm running. I could hear their feet running, so I knew they saw it. So I'm like, okay, we're seeing this. It's real. I guess I'm gonna go. But yeah, so I think I never even thought about until your book about how these bodies of water relate to some of the paranormal instances I've had in my life.
Yeah, it's there's a deep connection. Ancient Aliens even picked up on it.
Oh yeah.
Ancient Aliens has an entire episode.
I've seen it.
Yeah, season 10. It's the ocean, the water one, and they have the same theory that I do with these lakes being portals. Of course, in their case, it's Nessie being portaled in from space. But
I was watching that episode last night. It's funny you said that because we watch it when we go to bed, and we were watching season 10, and that was up on Amazon. We had that. We buy the seasons on there. We go to sleep to Ancient Aliens. That's just us.
But I pay attention when different groups of people with complete different belief systems start picking up on the same stuff. I mean, that's all about aliens and things coming from outer space. And of course, I'm very much focused on this planet and pulling from ancient folklore, but it's matching up, and you can't ignore that. Whether it's aliens or fae,
semantics. Interdimensional, yeah. I don't know. They get in Ancient Aliens. I think there is a lot when it comes to the whole mythology of fairies and the way they interacted with people. It's very similar to the alien abduction experience. I can definitely see that.
Absolutely. In fact, there's an old woodcut from I can't remember the date. I think it's medieval or perhaps a little bit after that. That has your typical pan satyr looking thing in the center of what is very clearly a crop circle.
Oh yeah. I mean, I love that stuff.
Hundreds of years old. That particular this woodcut is like hundreds of years old, and it's very clearly a crop circle. And so, was it fae? Was it aliens? What's the difference?
Right. I mean, like I said, it's semantics. We don't know what we're dealing with here. It's something that is definitely affecting our world, but it's something from another world, interdimensional. I'm a big interdimensional fan. I want to make sure we get out your information tonight too. Tell everybody your website again.
All right. It's pretty easy. It's waterwitchcraft.com.
And they can find, you have a blog as well. You mentioned earlier.
Yes. I am in many places. So yes, you can find me at my blog, which is a Pathos blog, The Water Witch. If you Google Pathos, The Water Witch, you'll find me. Got a cool blog this week about how to use sun water in your own magic. Kind of charging it with the energy of the sun. And I spend a lot of time on Instagram. I have a presence on Facebook under Water Witch and Annwyn Avalon, but I just don't love Facebook anymore. It's like every time I get on there, it's just everything is terrible. And so I spend most of my time over on Instagram. I post a lot of original content. I have a homestead, so I post a lot of stuff about what's going on my farm. I'm a professional dancer as well.
We didn't even get into the dance stuff. I'm so sorry. We didn't even get into that.
Oh, I'll be dancing next Saturday. This Saturday, coming up. At Fairy Worlds at midnight with my ritual theater group, Valoria. So if you're at Fairy Worlds, I hope to see you there. But yeah, I spend a lot of time on Instagram. So Annwyn Avalon over on Instagram. Follow me. Sometimes I post funny things, belly dance stuff, water magic, farm, little bit of peek into my life.
Well, you have a very interesting life, and like I said, I didn't even get into the belly dancing, and dancing is his own magic. What it seems like,
Oh yes,
So
there's a lot of esoteric practices contained within dance as well. Yeah.
I want you, Annwyn, promise me you're gonna go check out Water ITC. And if you want, I'll send you some stuff. If you can't find, I'll see what I can find for you to look it up. But there's a number of people doing it out there, and I would love to see a water witch give it a shot. All you have to really do, Annwyn, is get a pot of water. I mean, maybe I'm going to get reamed out by some water ITC person, but all as I understand it is you get a pot of water. You focus your intent, like you said. I wanted to really get into that conversation about more that was really interesting. What was the name? I want to get that before I go to. What was the name of the doctor that did that research?
Oh, it's Dr. Emoto. Emoto.
I want to get into that.
If you just put Dr. Emoto in, you will find so much. There's YouTube videos, his books, his website, I think is still up. Other people maintain it now.
Because that's really interesting, because we can get in the aspect of holy water and the power of just putting the intent and all that stuff we could have got into. We didn't get to that. But check out Water ITC. All you got to do is get a pan of water, focus your intent, get some lighting on it, and you swirl it around and ask your questions and take pictures of it with your phone. Don't drop your phone in the water. And then see if you get any images in there. I mean, that's what they're basically doing, I think. And man, imagine a water witch doing that.
I'm really excited to check this out. Thank you for sharing all the info on it.
All right. Awesome. Well, that's it for the show, guys. We will be back next Sunday. I got to see who is next Sunday. I always forget. I'm such a bad host. I always forget to look at my calendar before the show. Next Sunday, we have, I already know it, right? No, Paul Blake Smith is coming back. Awesome. Paul Blake Smith, MO 41. It was the book he wrote about the Missouri UFO crash before Roswell. We're going to get more back into that. I think he has a new book coming out. So check us next Sunday, same bad time, same bad channel, 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Central, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific time. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, and don't forget to check us out on Patreon. Your help, $2 a month to get exclusive content, and you support the show. All right, guys, see you next week. Have a great night.
Thank you.